Good afternoon, everyone. The Sacramento City Council will please come to order. Would the clerk, Ms. Cuppy, please call the roll to establish a quorum?
Thank you. Councilmember Ashby? Here. Councilmember Harris? Here. Councilmember Hanson? Here. Councilmember Carr? Here. Vice Mayor Jennings? Here. Councilmember Chenier? Here. And for the record, Councilmember Warren and Guerra are absent this evening, and Mayor Steinberg.
I am here. Thank you. Let's begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. I will ask Rabbi Alfie and Cantor Steinberg from Congregation B'nai Israel to please come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you.
In Hebrew. I saw her.
Do you want the Hebrew version?
Go.
Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Rabbi and Cantor. And Cantor, I will be home late for dinner tonight. So I want to begin this meeting on a very happy note. So you see that the representative from District 6, Councilmember Guerra, is not here tonight. And he's a guy who is always present, always great attendance. He's not here tonight, though, for a very good reason. And that is because his wife, Christina, and Eric, of course, welcomed their first child, a baby boy, yesterday, a bit earlier than expected. But everyone is healthy, and we just could not be happier for our colleague, Eric Guerra, and his wife, Christina, and a healthy baby boy, and we can't wait till you bring him by City Hall and bring a little extra joy to a council meeting sometime soon. So I just wanted to announce that with his permission, of course, and that's a great way to start tonight's meeting. So that's excellent. All right, we are going to begin tonight with a closed session report. Is there anything to report?
We have nothing to report, Mayor.
Very good. Thank you very much. We have two special presentations which we will take before we do the public testimony for items not on the agenda. And I would like to begin, please, with item 1 and I'd like to turn it over to, please, my colleague, Councilmember Jay Chenier.
Thank you, Mayor. So about 2 weeks ago, the mayor and I were spending an evening and visited Dan Gorfain, who is a member of our community and has been someone who really has made a mark in the city and the region of Sacramento, and in various ways. He's been a really important member of the arts community. You've seen Dan on his bicycle and advocating for the parkway. And he's been an important member of the community as a whole, and also the Jewish community. And so we wanted to really honor Dan in a few ways, and we're going to get to that with members of this council and some folks from the audience as well. There are people who are just good people and have good hearts and do the right things for the right reasons. And unfortunately, Dan couldn't be here tonight, but that does not stop us from honoring people who have built Sacramento and helped make it the community that we want to live in. And so I'm really proud to kind of lead this off. We have a couple of ways that we're going to honor Dan tonight, and I know Dan and his entire family are watching. So Dan, we love you. And I would like to, at this point, turn it over to the mayor.
Thank you, Jay. And, you know, I can't say it much better than that. It's going to be my honor to turn it over to Vice Mayor Jennings to actually make the presentation. But let me just add that Dan Gorfain is a treasure to the Jewish community of Sacramento, and Dan Gorfain is a treasure to all of Sacramento. For he is always someone who has said yes to any request to be helpful and to improve the community that he and his wife Joan love. Dan is not well, and he is watching tonight with his family on Channel 14 or on live stream. And while we're sad that he cannot be here tonight, we want you to know, Dan and Joan, your children and your entire family, that there's a lot of love emanating from this dais and from your city this evening. Let me turn it over to the Vice Mayor for a very special presentation. And then what I want to ask is Rabbi Alfie, on behalf of the Jewish community, and or the cantor as well, and anybody else from Congregation B'nai Israel, and then the Sacramento River Parkway Foundation to come on up and each say, representatives please, to say a few words, and Jim and Carlin Nafee, and the Arts Commission as well. I'm sorry, thank you. And the Arts Commission as well, all representing three of Dan's passions, to come on up and say some words on his behalf. But first, for the special and good news here, Vice Mayor Jennings.
Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, Councilmember Chenier. I am honored to be before you tonight to bring this action to name the Sacramento River Parkway Trail after Dan Gorfain. That deserves a round of applause. So Dan, I know that you and your family are watching on TV and watching this council meeting, and I hope the applause and the recognition that we're going to give you tonight brings an incredible smile to your face. And I want to make sure that you get this resolution, and some of your friends have said they will make sure they bring it to you tonight so that you don't have to wait till tomorrow. Upon my election, I was fortunate enough to host monthly meetings that Dan attended. And these meetings focused on the completion of the Sacramento River Bike Trail. There is not a more passionate advocate, there is no one more committed, and there was no one more central to the success that we are having in moving this project forward than Dan. Tonight's action is a moment in time for the Dan Gorfain legacy. It's one of community service, one of empathy for his neighbors, and a thirst for the beauty through the arts, especially music. I can say with full confidence that Sacramento, and especially the community of the Greenhaven Pocket area, is a better place because of Dan. It is my profound honor to bring this resolution forward in recognition of a life well lived. Ladies and gentlemen, I present you a resolution for Mr. Dan Gorfain as we name the Sacramento River Parkway Bike Trail in his honor.
So as the Vice Mayor presents the resolution, let's have the River Parkway representatives at first. That we're going to have the Arts Commission representatives and the Congregation B'nai Israel leadership come on up, and if one person on behalf of each group. I notice Mayor Fargo is here as well. Welcome back to your old chambers, Mayor Fargo. Let's hear from the folks who have worked so hard along with Dan Gorfain to create complete public access to the Sacramento River Parkway.
Mr. Mayor, Jim Haupt from Friends of the Sacramento River Parkway. Many of our members are here tonight, and we hope that Dan can see us all here, showing our support for a wonderful guy, tremendous man. Dan asked me to accept the resolution on his behalf tonight, and I intend to deliver it as quickly as possible after leaving here this evening. I can't tell you what a great honor it is for me, what a great privilege it is for me to accept this resolution on Dan's behalf. I would much prefer that Dan be here himself, but he's not up to it, and that's certainly understandable. Dan wanted me to thank all the members of the Friends of the Sacramento River Parkway. He doesn't want to take full credit for the accomplishments we've made, but Dan is definitely the largest part of them. But he also wants to thank, in particular, Mayor Ann Rudin, who founded Friends of the Sacramento River Parkway now decades ago, and the efforts to see this 40-plus year vision finally come to fruition. And we're now seeing that it is finally coming to fruition with actions taken by the City Council recently. Several of us have had the opportunity to have breakfast or lunch or coffee with Dan recently, and I think we all come away from it realizing not just that Dan is at peace, and he told me himself he is at peace, but we also understand that he's facing this new chapter in his life with great courage. I know that Dan would much prefer also to be here himself to thank you for this great honor. But I also speak for his friends, his colleagues, his admirers, everybody who knows Dan, in thanking you for this honor that you're bestowing on Dan. Dan is, as I said at the outset, a wonderful guy and much deserves the honor that the City Council bestows on him tonight.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very, very much. If you all could stay right there for a picture and all that, we'd appreciate it. But I want to get Rabbi Alfie Cantor-Steinberg, the Kaufmans, the Königsberg, Howard and Eileen, to come on up here and we'll take, if we can, we'll take a picture with all of the representative groups. I think Dan and Joan would love to see everybody together that represents an amalgam of his great contributions. Go ahead, Rabbi.
Since Congregation B'nai Israel's founding in September of 1849, our history has always been intertwined with the city of Sacramento. And from 1849 until today, it has always been important to our congregation that the men and women that we elect to be the president of our congregation meet certain criteria. This is because they are called upon not only to lead and care for our congregation, but also to represent us in the larger community. And because of this, we demand of them to be people who live according to a high ethical standard, to live by core Jewish values, and to be individuals that contribute not only to the life of our congregation, but who are also people who are respected in the larger Sacramento community as well. Congregation B'nai Israel is very proud to call Dan Gorfain one of our past presidents. Through his lifelong commitment to Tikkun Olam, the belief that we have an obligation to heal and repair what is broken in our world, Dan has given tirelessly of himself to our synagogue, to the Jewish community, to the city of Sacramento, and to the state of California. Judaism demands that we live our lives in such a way that others will say of us when we are gone that the world is better because we were here. And that is exactly how Dan Gorfain lives every day of his life, both in the way he has conducted his public life through his ongoing volunteerism and leadership at B'nai Israel, at the Sacramento Youth Symphony, supporting the arts in Sacramento, working to create and expand and protect the Sacramento River Bike Trail, as well as his work for the state of California, as well as through his private life as a devoted husband to Joan, as a loving father and grandfather, as well as always being a loyal friend. Dan Gorfain is what we call in Yiddish a mensch. He is a good and decent human being. It is a title that is harder to earn than one might think. On behalf of our current president, Bina Lefkowitz, our cantor, Julie Steinberg, past presidents in our congregation, and our synagogue itself, I want to thank the mayor and the city council for recognizing one of Sacramento's true treasures, Dan Gorfain.
Beautifully said. Thank you. Are the Nafis here? Please come on up on behalf of the arts community. Appreciate it. Everyone can stick just a few minutes. Will be important that we all take a picture together.
Hi, Dan. I'm Carlin Nafee. I served as chair of the Arts Commission. Right after Dan, I was his vice chair. Dan was a force on the commission. He was especially interested in music. The Youth Symphony was a special love of his. He worked hard for arts education, and he was a stellar leader. Tonight we have here staff members and former board members, people who all worked with him over the years. You know, I asked my husband, what should I say? I found out 5 minutes ago I was going to speak, and Jim said, well, tell him we love him and that he's a great guy. And I think that kind of sums it up. Dan, we love you, and you're a great guy. Thanks.
Thank you. From the heart. From the heart. So, Councilmember Hanson has a comment. Then we need to take a motion and a vote because, you know, this isn't official until the entire council votes here. So, Councilmember Hanson, and then we'll take a move by Vice Mayor Jennings, second by Councilmember Chenier.
First of all, to Dan and his family, we really appreciate everything you've done for our city. I remember first meeting Dan, and he just had this infectious personality, totally disarming, and he knew exactly what he wanted. He wanted funding for the arts, he wanted support for the Sacramento River Bikeway, and he wanted a community that he could be proud of. And I think that he clearly, judging from the quality of the people here tonight, his three families, so to speak, the Jewish community, the the Sacramento River Bikeway folks, and the arts community, he has left a strong and enduring legacy. And this is a hard time, but I think this is also an opportunity to say thank you. And thank you all for coming out tonight to honor Dan. And I've appreciated everything he's done for us.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Steve. All right. For the action of naming a portion of the Great California Delta Trail along the Sacramento River Parkway, now and forever, the Dan Gorfain Trail. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstain. So it is. Thank you very, very much. Can you guys all come? Let's get everybody. Can you come on, Heather? Yeah. We'll all come down. I'll come down. Jay, you should come down too.
I still look like I'm sitting down. Sorry. I need to vlog, right? Just stand.
This diet doesn't help with that.
No.
Hey, Shelley.
My last city attorney was only 6 foot tall, and I've watched videos and think, oh my gosh, did I not stand up? Because it didn't look like I was.
We miss you.
My sister.
Nice job in life.
All right, here we go. Everybody, 1, 2, 3.
1, 2, 3.
I got it.
Perfect.
Bye. See you later.
Is your daughter, right?
That's my daughter. Have you met my wife? Hey, Jules. It's Mindy Kepi, our city clerk.
This is Daryl's daughter.
Okay.
I Googled her to make sure she wasn't your daughter. Because I thought she was.
Oh my God, it's true. Very, very meaningful. Okay, let us now take public testimony for items not on the agenda. We have how many people signed up, Madam Clerk?
I have 26 people signed up for items not on the agenda.
Mayor, Compassion Awards.
I'm sorry?
Did you want to do the Compassion Awards first?
Oh, I'm sorry, we do have the second presentation. I'm sorry. We do have presentation number 2, of course. This is Vice Mayor Jennings again. Go ahead.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, it's my pleasure to announce the 2017 City of Sacramento Compassion Awards. That's right, come on, come on. historical perspective, we initiated the Compassion Awards in 2015 as a special recognition of the compassionate work being done by the exceptional caregivers in residential care, in skilled nursing facilities within District 7. So we started only in District 7. Last year, we expanded it to the entire city of Sacramento. So this year, we received 12 nominations representing 7 different facilities. And out of these 12 nominations, the Compassionate Award Selection Committee identified 2 honorees and 1 caregiver of the year that stood out above the rest. That's not to say that the others didn't do a good job. That just meant that those 3 stood out above and beyond the rest. So although the committee was very impressed with the excellent care and compassion shown by all nominees, these 3 people are here to be honored tonight. So I'd like to present to you our first honoree of the evening, honoree Leah DeMahano of the Meadows at County Place, who was nominated by her administrator for above and beyond of helping the residents and the entire staff. Come on up to the front. Stay right there, I'll be right down. Honoree James Ednavi of the ACC Care Center, who was nominated by his supervisor for his dedication and advocacy to protecting residents through fall prevention and through other types of care services to help make sure that they were in a safe environment, loving, nurturing environment. Another round of applause for him as well. And the caregiver of the year, and they're going to beat me up for these names, so I apologize in advance. Nenita Yap Diango of the Escacon Care Center was nominated by her unit manager for over 25 years of dedication and commitment to their residents. Anita, I understand you have some comments that you'd like to make. Is that true? The microphone is right up there in that box. Go to your left a little bit more.
Thank you, City of Sacramento 2017 Compassion Award for recognizing my work. I work in Escacon for 25 years. Thank you.
All right. So let me just say, it's an honor to do the Compassion Awards and to bring people up who really spend time taking care of those who we love the most. And many times, they don't get the recognition that they deserve. This is our opportunity in Sacramento to take a look at those who spend extra hours making it special for those who they come in contact with that are not necessarily their family. But they love them just the same. They love them just as family, and they take care of them, and they do an incredible job. So it is my hope that next year we will have more than 12 nominations. We will have 12 times 12 nominations, because that's how many people that are out there caring for our loved ones. But right now, tonight, we want to take time to honor these 3. Please join me in giving them a big round of applause. Okay, so where are all my 12? The rest of my 12 here? The other 9 here? Come on up. Let's everybody see you. Come on up for the picture. Come on. Right here. All 12 nominees are here tonight. Come on, one more time. Big round of applause.
right. Good to start out this way. Excellent. All right, now let us begin the public testimony for items not on the agenda. We have 26 speakers. 2 minutes is what we afford members of the public, and we'll listen carefully. Everyone's welcome to come up individually. If you're here as a group and want to designate one or two representatives on behalf of your group, that would be okay too, but it's, of course, everyone's choice, individual choice. We respect it and embrace the democratic spirit. Here we go. Okay.
Our first speaker is Robert Coplin, then Gregory Galvanovich, then Malachi Siku Emen. Mr. Coplin?
Mr. Coplin. What do you say?
Well, I want to talk about the homeless children in Sacramento County. I'm going to read some stats for you. Encino Preparatory High, 139 homeless children. Frederick Joyce Elementary, 136. Glenwood Elementary, 133. Endercombe High School, 116. Cordova High, 110. Liberty Ranch High, 103. Grant Union High, 94. Bell Avenue Elementary, 91. Center High, 91. Village Elementary, 87. Those are the top 10 homeless children in Sacramento. But that's by edsource.org, who has stats on all of them in the state of California. And my high school, Mira Loma High School, had 60, and they're ranked 23rd. So that's over 1,000 right there. Can you tell me how we only got 20-some hundred homeless, unsheltered? I don't see the stats. What, you know, 3 things Sacramento County needs? Housing, housing, and more housing. Can anybody all read this? I think that should be very telling on what's wrong with Sacramento County, and Sacramento City Council is part of the problem. Thank you.
My name is Gregory Glavinovich. I want to talk about 3 items, maybe just one. I want to talk about cops or policemen and why people call them. I talked to 10 different policemen around town, even on a college campus, and I asked them, isn't it true that the #1 reason for someone to call the police is because of a domestic dispute between husband and wife or boyfriend and girlfriend on a college campus? A domestic dispute. And they all say yes. And
Excuse me.
are you going to freeze it at
Have
128?
noise in the chambers, please. Thank you. Excuse me.
He's a member of the Black Press.
Okay. Well, he's welcome to. What's the issue?
Obviously, they know what I'm here about, right? Okay? Why are you making a big deal out of it?
We have somebody other than what's going on. This guy went- Hey, you're welcome. Excuse me. Excuse me. Any member of the press is, of course, welcome to be here. What, I don't know what the issue here is. Sir? Okay. Please continue your testimony.
I asked the policeman, isn't it true that the reason you show up is because argument between husband and wife? And they all say yes. So I tell them to get some paint out, eliminate the word police on your car, and just paint in their marriage counselor. If you look at the astrological signs, Aries con Aries, Aries with Taurus, Aries with Virgo, Aries with Scorpio, Aries with Sagittarius, there's 144 combinations, and 50% are not good. Look at the divorce rate, it's 50%. So if people would study astrology first, before they got married, they would have a better decision. And the police would be nice if they dealt with astrology when they dealt with the marriage counseling they do. Let's see. Albert Einstein said we're a slave to the front doorbell, the telephone, the refrigerator, and the toilet. And I say I forgive people and let things slide because if I find out what their astrological sign is, because people are true to their sign. So I say we are a slave to our DNA, gravity, our boss, and our astrological sign. I've got 25 seconds, so I'm not going to get to the next two topics. Darrell Steinberg, Year of the Boar, Chinese Year of the Boar. Why? Does Sacramento News and Review say he doesn't have any enemies? Because he's true to his sign. Sign of the Boar, 1959, is very social. I could talk about Kevin Johnson, Mark Friedman, but...
Gave away my age, by the way.
I think we're all 13.7 billion years old, and when these women tell me they're afraid to say their age...
Thank you, Gregory. Thank you.
I tell more...
Thank you. That's good.
Our next speaker is Malachi Sekou Amen, and then Ardell Lamond Harrison.
Okay,
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. I am Malachi Amen with the California Urban Partnership, and we're here tonight on the issue of racial and health equity in marijuana policy in the city of Sacramento. First thing that I wanted to do within the 2 minutes really quickly is say how befitting it is that our coalition here tonight with the R Plus Hemp Network is here at a time when the city began its tribute to Dan Gorfain, who is an absolutely amazing champion of equal access to all of God's creation, and a champion of families and of culture and community. And I also wanted to congratulate Councilmember Guetta on this evening of him having a baby boy, and on the Compassion Awards, because all of those things are befitting of why we need equity in marijuana policy in the city of Sacramento. And I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Mayor, for your leadership on this issue and continuing to work with us. There's some work to be done, some difficult decisions to be made, but we wanted to be here tonight to be heard and to be seen, because we think that all of those reasons around access and fairness and equity and principles around compassion are important as we work to move an equity program in the area of cannabis so that African Americans and those most impacted by the drug war will be able to heal their families and will be able to heal our community. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Our next speakers are Ardell Lamond Harrison and then Kiera Norman.
Good afternoon. I don't know if I should tell everybody what my sign is, but we'll get right down to it. I'm Ardell Lamond. I'm the housing chair for the NACP, and one of my strong, passionate things is homeless, housing, jobs, so forth and so on. And this incubator portion of the cannabis is very weighing on my heart, because I want to make sure that as we move forward into this billion-dollar industry, that we get our share. And to get our share, we must become educated and we must become trained. When we become trained, we become viable. When we're viable, it gives us the economic power to be able to house and find the funding for different projects. And I think by creating these jobs in the cannabis industry will solve a lot of Sacramento's problems. Again, like they say, the housing, just the self-esteem by having a job, because this is an opportunity for us to really be able to be part of the community and give back. So I'm really looking forward to it. As the chair, housing is very, very important. And I think one step moving forward by creating the jobs will eliminate a lot of homeless people. So I commend you for what you've done so far, and let's keep pushing forward. Thank you.
Kiera Norman and then Betty Williams.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you, Mayor and City Council members. My name is Kiara Norman. I'm the chair for the economic chair for the NAACP. I'm speaking on behalf and in favor of economic justice. I am in support, we are in support of scholarships for application fees, incubator facilities, and loan funding. We also would like to thank Law and Ledge for recommending this to the agenda on the 28th. Thank you very much. And we encourage the entire council to vote in favor of this on the 28th. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Next speaker is Betty Williams, and then Essence Hill.
Thank you. My name is Betty Williams. I'm the president of the Greater Sacramento NAACP, the largest branch in the state of California. Thank you, Mayor and City Council, for allowing me to speak on the issue of cannabis and economic justice. I would like to congratulate Law and Ledge for bringing the equity piece to the forefront and making sure that we had a voice when it comes to cannabis. This is not my first time coming in front of the City Council. As you know, months ago that I came before you because of the stakeholder marijuana meetings that you had been conducting for almost 2 years, and the African American community was not part of those meetings. But thank you, Mayor, as a result, and Councilman Jay Chenier, we have been meeting, and the things that we are looking for is scholarships for business license, incubator facilities that will help be controlled by our communities to provide workspace to affordability enough for us to have a startup, and loan funds for at least $3 million with no interest or low interest loans to help the African American entrepreneurs for startup of their businesses. In addition to that, I would like for you to also look into a policy where cannabis is for the business of the residents of Sacramento first and outsiders second. By that, putting in a policy or a credit per se, where if you're a resident of the Sacramento area, that you'll have first choice or priority when it comes to the business of cannabis versus the big money stores or the corporations coming in and eating up all the equity pieces and then taking it back to their states. Let's make Sacramento first, invest into us first. Thank you.
Thank you, Betty.
Essence Hill, and then Tiara Pope.
Evening.
Hello, Mayor and Council and City Manager. Regarding cannabis equity, there is a large pool of data that shows how Black and Brown communities have been and continue to be greatly affected by the war on drugs. I am here to ask that you all support and engage in the creation of equal opportunities for these communities that have been most negatively affected by what those who come from communities of privilege are benefiting from. I am requesting the following. As Ms. Betty Williams stated, scholarships that remove all marijuana business application fees for people most affected by the war on drugs. Incubator facilities controlled by our community to provide workspace affordable enough for us to start up businesses and be successful. Loan funds with no interest or low interest loans to help Black and Brown entrepreneurs start up their businesses. Thank you.
Next speaker is Tiara Pope, and then Raquel Kemp.
Welcome.
Thank you. I appreciate that. My name is Tia Pope, born and raised in Sacramento. I'm just going to share my personal experience of why I support the equity and the marijuana policy. I truly and strongly believe that right now the African American community is facing so many struggles intricately when it comes to being displaced. The African American men are losing so many jobs. They're staying at home, they're helping their wives take care of the children. They're feeling displaced. They can't find a good job because they probably have already gotten something on their record for trying to provide for their family. So I am here because I support scholarships to help the community advancement in our peace. I'm also here to support incubator facilities controlled by our community to provide those workspaces that we need. I also support loan fund as well. So I hope that you guys have a listening ear, and I appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you for coming today.
Raquel Kemp, and then Plachette Robertson.
Hi, good evening, Council and Mayor. Thanks for taking the time to listen to us. I just wanted to share my heart. I am from Sacramento, California. I was raised here. I grew up here. I've seen a lot. I've seen how the African American community has been impacted. I know of people that have been criminalized, pulled over unlawfully, searched their cars, and you hear about that in the Bay Area, but it happens a lot in Sacramento too. And you know, I'm in support of this because this turns things around. It gives back to the African American community, and it redeems the time that has been lost from the families. And so I'm hoping that you guys are in favor of it. Not only, you know, and I support it with the scholarships. I support the incubator program. I can tell you right now, I am in the process. I'm co-founder of PK Solutions. We are in the process of getting our cultivation facility up and running. I can tell you right now, without this program, it will make it hard for Sacramento City, not just even the African American community as well, but this is for blacks and brown people, that it's definitely going to impact them greatly. They need to know how to get their businesses up and running. They need to know how to get this so that way we can keep the funds here in Sacramento. If we don't get this pushed, the funds we have, looking for a building, let me just tell you, looking for a building, we have out-of-state investors coming in. I'm sure you guys already know. If this does not get pushed, then the funds are going to be going in other economies, and we need to, and I would love to see, and I hope us all together as a people can come together and pull this money so we can solve all these problems with homelessness. You know, I want to see these streets cleaned up. I want to see everything. I want to see Sacramento thrive.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Plachette Robertson, and then Vicki Blakely.
Good evening, City Council. My name is Plachette Robertson, and I'm the founder of SacCulturalHub.com and the chief editor of the Hub magazine. I am here in support of economic justice and wealth creation in the African American community of the greater Sacramento Valley region. Decisions are being made regarding equity and marijuana policy that will directly impact me, my family, my neighborhood, my business, and the African American community at large. As a repeat of what has already been said by others before me, I cannot emphasize enough on how I am here in support of encouraging City Council to move on creating scholarships that remove all business license application fees for people of color most hurt by the drug war. The current license cost is astronomically high at $45,000. I encourage the City Council to establish incubator facilities controlled by our community to provide workspace affordable enough for us to start up businesses and be successful. I encourage the City Council to establish a loan fund of at least $3 million with no interest or low interest loans to help black and brown entrepreneurs start up their businesses, where in over 100 scholarships in Oakland was awarded to those applying for licenses. And I wish the City Council would consider changing the loan fund to a business grant with no paybacks, as African Americans never received their 40 acres and a mule. As I agree with my sister, Betty Williams, invest in us first. Thank you for your support and allowing me to contribute my comments.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Vicki Blakely, and then Mac Worthy.
Evening.
Good evening, Mayor, City Council. I am here on behalf of Sac Cultural Hub Media Foundation in support of scholarships, incubators, loan funds for economic growth to be put back into the black community, black and brown, entrepreneurs, startup businesses. Scholarships be removed, that remove all the business license application fees from people hurt most by the drug wars. The current license cost is at $45,000. The average Black, brown entrepreneur, African American, it's kind of a struggle for that type of license fees. Incubator facilities controlled by our communities. I'm going to piggyback on Plachette Robertson because I think it's very important to provide work, affordable space enough for us to start up our businesses and be successful at them. Loan fund with no interest or low interest loans to Black and brown entrepreneurs to start up their businesses as well. Our communities have been affected by this drug on war, our families. We need to we need to give back what we have lost. We have contributed to the homelessness. We've contributed to the joblessness. We've contributed to the breakage of this dissolution of the African American family due to the drug of war on drugs. So we're just here asking and hoping and praying that you will hear us tonight and see and at least consider what it is that we're proposing. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Next speaker is Mac Worthy, and then Keith Kemp.
Good afternoon, Mayor. And this is what I've been driving for. The reason I come down here and say the things I say. Black people in economic development, their own businesses. This is the move for that. This is the foundation for that. And I hope to have 5 times this many the next time we come here. Instead of we fighting about the police department, this is what I want to see them come and do, talk about business. And my recommendation goes back to what the school district done want. Set aside $2.0 million. And I'm requesting to you to set aside $2.5 million. Earmark it. Now, you spoke about some money coming back that you needed money application. That money will be spent back to you for applications and for the housing. And the money they have to put up, the money going to come right back to the general funds. So if you set aside the $2.5 million, immediately you will get some money going back to the treasury. But if you wait and go through blah, 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 you're not going to get it going back. These people, what I heard today, you got some young folks here. When I'm dead and gone, they're going to be here. So help them now, and they'll see what the crazy man Mac Worthy has been saying for many years.
Keith Kemp, and then James Sweeney.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor, City Council. I'm here. My name's Keith Kemp. I'm president of PK Solutions. We are a Black-owned cultivation corporation here in the city of Sacramento. I'm here to voice my support of the program, the equity program. Just speak, just want to take a second and speak from the heart how the war on drugs has affected my family. I got multiple cousins, stepbrother, all incarcerated as a result of the war on drugs. Lives changed, families changed. Children, children that don't see their fathers because of the war on drugs. And I think you guys have a special opportunity to right some wrongs. And so we're here. This equity program, this program really has the opportunity to change some lives in our city. From a business standpoint, an incubator program can help support the cannabis industry as a whole, not just minority cannabis businesses, but all cannabis businesses. We all are going to face a shortage of skilled workforce, and this incubator program can help support that. As a small business owner, we'll be looking for the support on the equity program to help bridge the gap, to help hire those skilled workers. And I think supporting the loan fund that provides no interest and low interest loans would be an awesome thing for our community, and you guys have the opportunity to do that on the 28th, so we hope to rally your support.
Thank you.
next speaker is James Sweeney, and then Wanda Cleveland.
I was moved by the reference to tikkun, which means to mend and repair and to heal. This particular piece is to mend, to repair, and to heal. It is our belief in the philosophy that we call RICE, R-I-C-E. That's where we deal with the issues of race, inclusion, collaboration, and of course, equity and engagement. And just as there is brown rice, white rice, yellow rice, red rice, and believe it or not, there may be even some black rice. And we think it's nourishing, and we think from a policy perspective, if you can support the three pieces that have already been laid out, you're supporting your diversity, you're supporting your rights, but also you're helping the people with their jobs. And so I'm not here as a member of the state, even though I am a recent appointee of the Department of Consumer Affairs and their Cannabis Advisory Commission. But I say this because it's needed. Over and out.
Sweeney.
Next speaker is Wanda Cleveland, and then Ionese Martin.
Good evening, Wanda.
Good evening. I'm here because we have a homeless problem, and we have a police problem. The police, they say that they're not criminalizing the homeless, but they are. Everything that the homeless do by hiding to sleep are being woke up by the police. The 200-bed shelter that you guys are implicating to start up is not enough. We need 200 plus 200 plus 200. We have 14,000 people on the streets of Sacramento any one night. There's no shelters to go to. How is it that people are being criminalized, people that haven't ever been involved with the criminal activity, now sleeping is criminalizing them? I think it's time for us to every one of our districts to put in the pot a 200-bed plus. We need to get this problem taken care of because these people are good people. Some of them are good people and have no criminal background. Now they have a criminal background because they are homeless. When is it going to stop? When is it going to stop? I'm talking about all communities. I'm talking about whites, blacks, pink and purples, right? Exactly. The gentleman saying the colors of rice is the color of people out there on the street. We have babies out there, mothers, single mothers out there hiding because it's a felony to be on the street with your babies.
Next speaker is Ionese Martin, and then Elaine Jackson.
Hi, good evening, City Council, Mayor. My name is Lanice Martin, and I'm a co-founder of the Hood Incubator. I'm also a Gemini. And the goal of the Hood Incubator, The goal of the Hood Incubator is to increase the participation of Black and brown communities in the legal cannabis industry across the spectrum. And so I wanted to share a couple of facts with you, and these facts that I'm about to share with you are nothing you can do about. It's out of your control. It's just what's going to happen come January 1st, 2018. But come January 1st, 2018, there will be roughly 500,000 residents in California that will be too poor to consume legal cannabis. And that's because of a trifecta of laws that will all, policies that will all come together. The current the current California and federal that states no person that lives in federal housing can do the smoking or vaping. And so that's already current. And then you couple that with the SB 65, no smoking in cars, and the props. Sorry. Passengers can't smoke. Yes. Passengers, and then including passengers, as well as Prop 64 of no smoking in public. We now have a situation where come January 1st, 2018, poor people will be too poor to smoke. You can't do anything about that. We can't do anything about that. And also what we know come January 1st, 2018, racism won't go anywhere. Just like that police officer somehow found a way to harass this man, they'll still find a way to harass us. Right? I have more to say. Sorry. And so what I want to say is you can't do anything about all those things, but what you have control of, what you can do is right in front of you. And I urge you to take control of something, because that's going to be really sad, what we see, the trifecta of laws, and you know what's happening. You can't do anything about that. You can do something about this. All your residents have been laying out what you can do. Please listen.
Thank you.
Next speaker is Elaine Jackson, and then Patty Taylor.
Hello, Council. I'm here today to ask for District 2 improvements, and also for you to change the way you're approaching this homeless situation. I believe that you should have smaller shelters, not mega facilities, for several reasons. One is they work better for communities. The homeless also like smaller shelters. They do not like these large shelters. There's too much crime in them when you put a lot of people together like that. And they're a lot happier when you have these small shelters. I don't know why the city wants to put these big shelters in. I don't know. San Francisco's already putting a lot of smaller shelters in San Francisco with their navigation centers. And I'm also wondering why the city has not invested in District 2. You guys are investing money all over the place. Downtown, River District, you've built huge facilities in the south area on Meadowview Road, but District 2 has not gotten their share of funds and not gotten their share of investment. We have one of the smallest libraries in the city. They need it the most there. You have very little computer there. You have very little everything at that library. Why, again, isn't the city changing this? We need it the most. You have huge libraries where you don't even need it that much. They need it in District 2. It's very important that you guys do something about that for all of Sacramento. The other thing is, you guys have not made an investment on Del Paso Boulevard. Nobody has a good economic plan. I can give you a good plan right now. Take $3 or $4 million, get 10 people to move there, give them money to stay there for 2 years. 1 year, give them money the next year, and give them money to start their businesses. Get nice businesses to move in there, and it will make a big difference. Do a lot of businesses at once, not 1 or 2. That doesn't work.
Thank you, Elaine.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Patty Taylor, and then Emily Delk.
Good evening. I support everything the previous speaker said. I'm also from District 2. The Del Paso Arden Business District once thrived, and it was on the road taken to Lake Tahoe. But then that changed when the freeways changed, and the area was passed by and declined. The adjacent diverse neighborhoods, however, are still there. And some of us in Woodlake have homes from the 1930s. We really love our neighborhood and have all kinds of activities going on all year long. We support and appreciate the efforts to provide shelter for the homeless, but we ask that you not put a 200-bed homeless shelter right down the street from our homes and around the corner from our elementary schools. I attended the Regional Transit Board meeting last night, which some of you are on that board, and there still is a parcel of land that you're planning to put a homeless shelter on. On the way home from the meeting, we did a tour of homeless shelters that are in North Sacramento, close to our neighborhood, but none of them are near a neighborhood of hardworking taxpayers, a business district that is trying to improve and expand, and a school. When I got home on the news, there was a city council member complaining that the city wants to put a parolee check-in center in a building across the street from a proposed soccer stadium in his district. Imagine how I felt. It doesn't in any way compare with having a homeless shelter right down the street from my house. So while we support the shelters, we congratulate the city and council, the city and county for coming together to do this work. I think you can find a better place for the shelter. Thank you.
Excuse me. Please, excuse me. People have the right to express their opinions, and we all have the obligation to please listen to everybody. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Emily Delk, and then Michael Voy.
Good evening, Mayor Steinberg and City Council members. My name is Emily Delk, and I am here proudly representing the board and staff of Fairy Tale Town. In this month of Thanksgiving, we have a lot to be grateful for. And I'd like to share with each of you and your constituents a couple of special programs we're offering the community this month. Friday, November 25th, is Free Admission Day and Canned Food Drive at Fairy Tale Town. Humpty Dumpty himself is going to be opening the gates and offering free admission to visitors who bring in canned goods to donate the day after Thanksgiving. All goods collected will be donated to the Sacramento Food Bank and Family Services Spirit of Holiday Giving Drive. Offering free admission to families in our community is a way of saying thanks for your support all year. And new this year, Fairy Tale Town is offering fall fun camps during Thanksgiving week. This is a great opportunity for children ages 4 to 9 to come and play and learn in day camps themed around animals and arts and crafts. We're grateful for the support we receive from the city, from each of you, from our members, and also Councilmember Guerra for growing our family and our constituency at Fairy Tale Town. We hope to see you around our town this season.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Please wish Humpty Dumpty our best, having fallen off the wall.
I will. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Michael Voy, and then Chris Logston.
Mayor,
Yes, Councilman Carr?
could you send us something on those dates and those events at Fairy Tale Town? Absolutely. Okay, thank you.
Very good. Michael.
Evening, Mayor, council members. I guess I'll be the voice in the wilderness. I think the cannabis policy has a long ways to go, and I'm not sure that it'll ever get there. And I know that it's flawed, and a lot of people do. But everybody's thinking about the money. Psychologists are thinking about the money. Counselors are thinking about the money. The incubators are thinking about the money. Yeah, everybody's thinking about their piece of the money. Is anybody thinking about the lives of the people that are affected? I bet that everyone here that spoke in favor of these regulations knows somebody's life who was adversely affected by cannabis. And it wasn't because cannabis was criminal. It was because somebody was using something that was dangerous.
Please speak to the council, please.
Well, everybody can hear. And when somebody speaks behind me, I just addressed them.
That's okay.
I
You're-
apologize.
you're
I apologize.
addressing- but you're addressing the
I
council.
apologize.
Thank you.
So I'm opposed to that. The other thing that I hear, yes, they need jobs, they need incubators, they need scholarships, but not for cannabis. And there are many other things that I could say. I will say this. You have a conflict of interest in regulating cannabis. No question about it. You have a conflict of interest. You had $4 million in income. How much good have you done with the $4 million? You haven't even regulated the industry properly with the $4 million. And I'll have more to say about that next week.
Thank you for coming and expressing yourself always.
Chris Logston, and then Lorraine Frias.
Good evening, everyone. I am in full support for cannabis equity here in Sacramento. Notwithstanding what we just heard, I completely disagree with what this gentleman just said. And I had a whole thing to come up here and say, but I just have to push back on that. He is absolutely wrong. I'm actually one of those people who was adversely affected by cannabis. I also want to, and I did have some stuff to come up here and say, but I also want to show love and respect to my brother right here. That was wrong with which that happened when we came in here, and so I want to throw support behind you. So my full name is Christopher Troy Lodgson. I'm an African-American descendant of slaves in this country, and I fully support reparations for the drug war that has been imposed on African-Americans like myself. In particular, I am in full support of scholarships that remove the business license application fees for those like me. I'm in full support of incubator facilities controlled by African-Americans and Latinos. I'm in full support of a loan fund of at least $3 million, but let's push it, $5 million, more, as much as you can. I know you're projected to run deficits in the budget, you know, in F19 and F20, fiscal 19 and fiscal 20, but this is the right thing to do. I want to add one piece that's not included here, though. We need to prioritize African Americans and Latinos in the hiring for any jobs that come to this city for and in relation to cannabis. On October 3rd, this council approved, I think, the Job Growth and Employment Incentive Strategy in relation to your economic development plan in 2013. I think we need to prioritize hiring for African Americans, and I'm in full support of cannabis equity. Thank you.
Thank you for testimony.
The next speaker is Lorraine Frias, and then Wes Elliott.
Hi, I'm representing the Coalition for Indigenous Peoples Day to designate the second Tuesday of October as Indigenous Peoples Day in the city of Sacramento.
Yeah, I'm a local community organizer in opposition to the city's ordinance that allows the inhumane mistreatment of Sacramento's homeless individuals.
It is evident that the homelessness issue is at the forefront of the city's agenda.
And it's evident that the commemoration to acknowledge Native American people as caretakers of this land is not.
We are here to state that we ally together because the decisions that this local body makes impacts the most disenfranchised people.
People that are without and do not have the means to change their situation.
And the people who are
Hey, we're talking to you. Yeah. We're speaking to you.
Get my time, please.
You actually
Stop
asked
my time.
me to, you just asked this gentleman to speak to you.
Ma'am, if you would like to address the city council
I
in 2
how it
minutes,
was.
you're
Thank you.
welcome to.
I'll
Please,
continue.
please.
Thank you.
Can you please put back my time?
All right, where were we?
And the people.
I'll start from the beginning. Go for it.
Could you set my time back, please?
It's okay. We don't have to. Go for it. Start from the beginning.
And the people who are the only caretakers of the land in which you call home.
I lost place. Where am I?
A home that you have the privilege to call yours and deny to others. A home that the government that you proudly represent forcefully took from Native people by any means necessary.
When you take away the only means people have to survive, money, food, shelter, you make a premeditated decision for a death sentence. In 2016, there were 79 homeless deaths.
This sounds so familiar to me. This sounds like the situation that government imposed on Native people to this day, when Native people were killed and subjugated to other atrocities and relocated and then to the concentration camps that you call reservations. Power to the people, support Black liberation.
Yeah. I'll be back up to finish later.
Thank you all. Thank you all for coming tonight.
My next speaker is, go ahead.
We look forward to working with you between now and the 28th of November to final up a good package, okay? Thank you.
So my next speaker is Wes Elliott, and then I have a speaker slip with no name but a subject solutions. And then following that is Toshiba Francois. We need to. So we've lost our quorum. If you'll have a seat, and we'll wait for the council members to return.
Just hold for a second.
Okay. Yes, sir. Please.
Good evening. My name is Wes Elliott, Haudenosaunee, Six Nations, living here in Sacramento. Talking about Columbus Day and changing it to Indigenous Peoples Day. The question that I get a lot of times is, why change Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day? As Native people, why can't you get over it? That's the question. Why can't you get over it? My answer is, why can't you remember it? This is about memorializing people who have suffered a great wrong. Why don't you tell the U.S. government to get over 9/11? Why don't you tell people to get over all the veterans who died in the war instead of honoring them once a year? Why don't you tell your families to start thinking about all the ancestors who died? Why don't you destroy all the headstones that you put up to honor your friends and relatives over the years? It is because it is important for us to remember. We learn from it. Until people show that they have learned from this, we will never forget. We should never forget, even once we have learned from it, because who we are. It is just who we are as survivors and children and relatives of survivors, but it is part of who we are today. This city, state, and country must never forget what it once did to Native people. This city, Sacramento, as the capital of California, must never forget that California is the capital of one of the worst genocides ever committed on Turtle Island. Can we start at least by changing Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day? Can you do the right thing?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Wes.
And is the person that didn't put a name on their speaker slip here? Seeing none, let's go to Toshiba Francois and then Farah. Toshiba? Farah?
Oh, my name already too?
Not yet.
Is that the one that just had solutions on it?
Correct?
That was me.
Okay, you can go next.
Okay, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
I hate public speaking. I've never liked it because I never know what to say, and I'm never quite as eloquent as my comrades when speaking. I don't feel like I can truly convey my emotions that I feel. So I thought instead of citing constitutional law or human rights violations, I would just speak very plainly. As I'm sure all my constituents will, or my comrades will come up and talk to you about what laws you're violating. As one of your constituents and as a human being, I find the attack on the homeless community morally repugnant. Just because you are trying to hide your indifference to human suffering doesn't mean we don't clearly see what kind of human beings you are. And as you may not suffer from my judgment, the universe has a funny way of bringing things full circle, and I'm sure you will all at some point be touched with the pain and suffering of being without a home. And with that said, and because I'm an Aries, I will say that I will see you all in hell.
Next speaker is Fago and then Farah. I just went, thank you.
So I want to start off by showing support for the equity in cannabis proposals that you were hearing earlier. It's very important considering that the African American and Latino communities have been very heavily impacted by the racist war on drugs. So I talk a lot about the camping ordinance and the inhumane things about it, but I very rarely have actually given you what my views on the solutions are. So I have a list of solutions that I'm going to be working on making sure happen. It's just a rough draft. 1, allow for sleeping in public spaces between 8 p.m. and 7 a.m. in low foot traffic areas in groups no more than 5. 2, open at least one tent city and or tiny home village in each district. 3, open a parking lot in each district as a safe place for vehicle sleeping and install monitored restrooms and shower facilities. 4, perform an audit on how much money the city spends on the current camping ordinance, including law enforcement hours spent, court fees, etc., and have 60% of that funding reallocated to fund housing and services. 5, open monitored restrooms and increase the number of trash cans in areas near known homeless encampments. 6, create storage lockers that cost 25 cents a use scattered around the city. The 25 cents would be put into a fund for housing and improvements to services. 7, discontinue enforcement of the camping ordinance in non-residential areas while still allowing for response to negative or harmful behavior. 8, create language that protects the homeless from discrimination based on their housing status and includes restitution to the victims of discrimination. 9, grant equal protection under the law and the right to legal counsel in all homeless-related cases. Because with your current path of further criminalization, you're going to create more criminals, more desperation, and more desperation leads to more acts of desperation. You're going backwards. Stop.
Our next speaker is Samara Love, then Trina Allen, and then Renita Hams.
Okay, good evening, City Council. I just want to ask that when the city does select an organization to administer the core program, that there's an RFP or an RFQ. It seems like a lot of stuff is done behind closed doors. I've been following these proceedings, and just last meeting, some of the council members weren't even aware of what really the cannabis equity program was about. I mean, someone even brought an attorney here. So it concerns me that we are just moving ahead without really being ready. I think that the loan program is horrible. This is about reparations. This should be a gift, not something that we pay back. And I think that you've already established that. But again, when did that happen? Why are you having these closed-door meetings? The other thing that you're doing is capping the dispensary licenses. You're not going to issue anymore, just the 30 right now until later. That's crazy. The city conducted an audit on the 30 dispensaries, and they were out of compliance, not paying taxes. They shouldn't be rewarded and given the ability to sell recreational when the rest of us can't even, get in or submit an application because you're capping it at 30. Also, you admitted during that audit that millions have gone to the general fund, so that's great. Millions were becoming even more so, and that is the money that should be used to fund the equity program. Also, when you do the RFP for the core program, I hope that it's just, again, I think there's some backdoor shadiness going on, and I hope that the organization that you select will also be an organization that have people on the team that will qualify as an equity applicant. That's it.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Trina Allen, then Renita Hams, then Jillian Molina.
Good evening.
Good evening. In the past year, you have signed on to a citywide charter of compassion, stood up publicly for sanctuary status against our xenophobic elected sheriff, promised millions to our most vulnerable community members, and have walked hand in hand down our streets to create unity in the face of community violence. All of this looks very lovely on the surface, but it masks your collision and therefore culpability with the conditions that create the community challenges in the first place. Your people were hurting from the housing crash, and instead of creating safe and uplifting policies to mitigate class oppression, you fell at the developers' feet and let them steal the land from under Black neighborhoods and communities of color through gentrification. Those same folks, pushed out by skyrocketing rents and mortgages, became unhoused at unprecedented rates, and instead of meeting their short-term and long-term diverse needs, you criminalize them through your genocidal anti-camping ordinance, making it illegal to sleep or protect yourself from inclement weather. Now you are suggesting we prevent those same people who use systemically unhoused but not yet rehoused from meeting their own daily needs for food and harm reduction. Your colonialist and white supremacist motivations are unveiled as you send your police to clean up neighborhoods that really just need community-led resources so you can sell it to the big next developer. In doing so, you fill our jails and courtrooms with Black and brown bodies and flood our streets with unhoused folks that you criminalize or respond to as a nuisance. You are failing in your charter to alleviate the cause of pain in others and cultivate an informed empathy with the suffering of others. Please look deeper into your own words. They're actually lovely. The only aggressiveness that you suggest is in the state violence that you so willingly confront your people with. You need to remember Dejan Foligno. You need to remember Joseph Mann. You need to stop policing poverty because it is cruel, it doesn't work, and you are going to be sitting on more dead bodies in your streets. It's not okay. You can do better. You should do better.
First, Renita Hams, Jillian Molina, and then Lorraine Brown. Is Renita here? No? Jillian? And then following Jillian, the last speaker for matters not on the agenda is Lorraine Brown.
Good evening.
Good evening. Hello. My name is Jillian Molina, and I would just like to express my support for the Cannabis Equity Program here in Sacramento. There's a couple of things that were mentioned here tonight, and I kind of wanted to just briefly touch on them. As someone, one of the gentlemen made the point of the difficulty in the regulations and how he believed that cannabis use was harmful. There have been so many studies that have come out recently that show the exact opposite. We also have a couple of agencies that are right now overseeing the implementation of the legalization statewide. That's the Department of Public Health, as well as the Department of Consumer Affairs, as well as Healthcare Services. And I believe that when we talk about the Cannabis Equity Program, that there are ways that we can write those regulations to include those who have previous convictions, just as we do for other type of benefit programs, such as the In-Home Supportive Services Program. We actually have a piece that's written in there that those who have prior convictions can still be allowed to be caretakers of family members. So I know that in this program, we too can probably draft something that would allow those who had those previous type of convictions. Okay? So that's one issue, one point. Again, I dispelled the myths about it being a gateway. There's a pending case right now with a 12-year-old little girl who is challenging because she has been seizure-free for almost 2 years. That right now is going through the courts, so that's going to be a case to watch as the federal government kind of wrangles with this piece here.
Can I get your final comments?
Pardon?
Can I get your final comments?
Oh, sorry, yes. I just want to acknowledge, I want to say that I am glad to see that Sacramento is really moving forward with this program. I know that it's been successful in other cities, and so I'm just really hoping that all of the different groups and the city council can really work together, have a committee, have different, it's important when you're doing those RFPs that you have teams that can really review those proposals.
I got you.
And be able
Okay.
to score them,
I got
right?
you.
To make sure that they are awarded judiciously, fairly.
Thank you for your
Okay?
testimony.
All
Thank
right.
you
Thank
very
you.
much.
Last speaker is Lorraine Brown.
Well, you know, I look at things on a broad, global meaning national level, and I'm looking at the bell curve here of what is going on, and we're not taking care of America. And the State Department's spending billions on saving their assets and foreign interests. What are we spending here to save our country? And the way I see it is that the land grants in 1862 was bringing in foreign troops so they could take over America and wipe out all the Indians. That's what really happened. They seceded from our union when we had a moratorium on immigration for 6 months, enough to bring in all the foreign troops in the Southern Confederate areas. And then they gave them 1,000 acres apiece as compensation.
Excuse me. I'm sorry. Can we turn off all electronic devices, please? Thank you.
As compensation for being in the cavalry, wiping out the Indians, taking our oil, violating treaties we had for 200 years. Same thing happened here again with the Small Business Administration loans in the late 80s. It was given to foreigners, people of color. Unfortunately, they keep zapping me, and I'm getting scars from being tortured in my apartment. Otherwise, I would have copied all of the recent data on what I'm saying, but hopefully next week I can bring it in. This is a war that's going on, and you are failing to honor your oath by taking care of America. It's fine if you want to take care of your country of origin, wherever that is, I don't know, but it's not following our laws. So it's sedition, it's treason, it's war.
Thank you.
I have no more speaker slips for items not on the agenda.
Thank you very much, Vice Mayor, and thank you to the members of the public for testifying. We did pull item 1, obviously, off the consent calendar, the Dan Gorfain resolution. We do now have the remainder of the consent calendar. Are there any items?
4 speakers.
We do have 4 speakers. Let me ask first, though, members, if there are any items that the member wants pulled off. Again, item 1's already been addressed. Okay, then let's hear the 4 public testifiers on the consent calendar, please.
So the first speaker is Lorraine Brown on item number 2, then Paul Weber on item 4.
Next week?
Carlos Marquez.
No, because I think you need a whipping. All right.
Well, okay. I mean,
Thanks, okay.
keep it.
No, yeah, I'll keep it brief.
Keep it brief.
We have a contract with Oracle, and I thought, yay, I was all for that, because maybe they could help figure out who is zapping into my apartment and lasering me and burning me and taking out communications, and now I understand that even NSA is having a problem. When we have landlords, brokers, stakeholders that are participating in gang activity, which is being administrated through futuristic German warfare called cyber warfare that is detonating, laser, taser, disrupting our communication. Your stakeholders and your partners are involved in a criminal crime ring here. We're giving out $40 billion, or I was just reading that in North Lake Tahoe, what is it, Lake Tahoe? That Oracle has all this property and got all these contracts. I mean, we have to hold these people accountable. And if we're giving out contracts, it's not so they can buy real estate and tell us that they are the lucky 1% and tell us how, this is what I'm getting on the street. organized crime is being administrated through community corrections and everybody that we're giving, our stakeholders that we're giving contracts to. And they're telling me it's too late. We've taken over, and we're mean. So I keep pushing for, we need to eliminate the OC families, or we need to have a family reunion and put them in one place. If they're not doing their job and they have contracts and they're threatening people like me or any of us or taking out our communication, they need to be removed. I'm sorry. And maybe put in their own little compound and camp, okay? In other words, cancel the contract and remove them.
Thank you. Thank
according to our Constitution.
Thank you, Lorraine.
Amendment 14.
Lorraine, thank you. Thank you.
Including Tom Snyder,
Next,
whoever
please
the heck
call the
he
next
is. I don't
speaker.
know.
So my next speaker is Paul Webb on item 4, Webby on item 4, and then Carlos Marquez. The item was not pulled, but if you'd like to speak on it. And then on item 6 is Jacob Brandt.
Good evening, council members and Mayor Steinberg. My name is Paul Wiebe. I am a representative of the Sacramento Rainbow Chamber of Commerce, which is a business entity that supports the LGBT and LGBT ally business communities within the Sacramento area. We stand here in support of item number 4 on the calendar, which is the commemorative sign toppers to be placed in the Lavender Heights area of Sacramento, which is the intersections of 20th and K and those surrounding intersections. We believe that this is a commemorative of the history of the LGBT community in Sacramento. It also reflects the culture and the diversity of Sacramento, and it helps give a center for the LGBT community. This is right near the LGBT Center and a lot of the other active businesses. This has been supported by both local businesses, residents in that community, and the like, and the funds for this project has been raised by local members. So this is not an expense to the city, but relatively this is a place to bring commemoration of the history of the Sacramento community together. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
And Carlos Marquez, and then Jacob Brandt on item 6.
Thank you, Council. My name is Carlos Marquez. I'm the president of the Sacramento LGBT Community Center. Don't want to add very much except thank you again for your support of item number 4, and thank you for your leadership in supporting the and recognizing the significance of Lavender Heights to the LGBT community.
Thank you very much for coming tonight.
And the last speaker on consent is Jacob Brandt on item number 6.
Mr. Brandt.
Hello, council members. Daryl Steinberg, thank you. I oppose number 6 because I don't think throwing more money into traffic is going to solve anything. The best way to do it, probably just to create local jobs. And part of this could be through cannabis equity. Beyond the wonderful flower that people like to smoke and ingest in numerous and various quantities, hemp will do wonders for us. It can remediate our soils, which will help out the worms and help out our water retention, so we don't have to spend as much money on focusing on water, because that is up to nature, in my opinion. I don't want to take up too much of your time, but just to emphasize that local jobs will probably take care of this because people don't need to drive as much. It is not completely necessary. It is necessary when we need to work a 9 to 5 to make a certain financial wage to support a lifestyle that might be excessive than what we're used to, especially how so many other people are suffering. But these are our choices that we continue to make. And it is up to us to make the decision to find local jobs, but it's also up to you to help create those local jobs. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for your patience in testifying tonight. That's the public testimony. Councilmember Hanson is up on an item on the consent calendar.
First, I'd like to move the consent calendar. Secondly, I just want to thank the Rainbow Chamber of Commerce, Prime Timers, the LGBT Center, and all the businesses and other groups that helped on the Lavender Heights project. This is the second phase of work we've been doing. The first phase was the Rainbow Crosswalk at 20th and K. And, you know, as the neighborhood continues to evolve, the LGBT community still calls this their home. And so it's a wonderful recognition of that history.
What's the next phase, just so we know what to anticipate?
Well, it's funny you should mention, Mayor. I'm sure that many people would want to know. There's a concept that Terry Seide, who owns Faces, would like to see a commemorative arch, and you know those are very expensive and complicated processes. So We're taking it one step at a time, and this is a huge step in the right direction.
You're saying we need more capital for economic development in Sacramento.
I think the mayor is offering his campaign fund, Paul, to pay for this arch.
What's the Cadillac
Yeah. I don't. Yeah.
Good. Thank you. It's terrific. Okay. Consent calendar has been moved. Is there a second? Second by Vice Mayor Jennings. All in favor of the consent calendar, please say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained. That is a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 to nothing vote. All right, let us get to the public hearings. We begin with item 12. Good evening. Please proceed.
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor Steinberg and members of the Sacramento City Council. My name is Garrett Norman, and I am with the Community Development Department. The project before you this evening was originally heard by the City Council on August 22nd as an appeal of the Planning and Design Commission's action to approve a 10-lot single-family subdivision at the northwestern corner of Swampston Drive and Santa Buena Way. 2 appeals were filed, one expressing concerns to localized flooding and impacts on the levee along the Sacramento River. The second appeal raised air quality health concerns to future residents of the project based on the project's proximity to Interstate 5. Councilmember Hansen also expressed concerns regarding the 10-lot subdivision and abandonment of 4th Avenue. The project was continued so the applicant could address concerns raised at the hearing. Since that hearing, the applicant has modified the proposal to remove 2 single-family lots that were proposed on the eastern unbuilt portion of 4th Avenue. The abandonment of the eastern unbuilt portion of 4th Avenue is no longer requested. However, the western portion of 4th Avenue is still requested for abandonment to accommodate lots 7 and 8. The applicant is now requesting to subdivide approximately 1.2 acres into 8 parcels for the construction of 8 single-family homes within the single-unit dwelling or R1 zone. The requested project entitlements include a tentative subdivision map to create 8 lots for single-family residential, tentative map design deviation to create parcels with no public street frontage, site plan and design review with deviations to lot width, depth, setbacks, and bulk control, and a tree permit to remove 1 walnut tree on lot 8. Staff supports the revised project because it achieves general plan policy related to infill development by activating a challenging underutilized area within city limits while providing additional housing units, is compatible with the surrounding single-family homes in terms of height and setbacks, and provides additional ownership housing opportunities on a residential infill site close to downtown. Staff recommends the City Council deny the 2 appeals and approve the requested subdivision. Thank you.
So I just want to clarify one thing factually, if I might, that I know we discussed this project in August. It was continued. In the meantime, after conversation or consultation, that the applicant amended the proposal, is that correct?
Correct.
And the amendment was what?
They removed 2 lots, lots 9 and 10. This was the original that we heard in August, and this is lots 9 and 10. It has since been revised to remove this portion.
I understand. Let me get this on the record. Okay. Good. Thank you. All right. We've got no public comment. We do have the 2 council members. Councilmember Hansen.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We worked very thoughtfully with the developer on this. I want to thank Bruce Monaghan in particular for participating in those conversations. And I think where we got to here is a good place. I still have many people who've contacted me from the immediate neighborhood who are opposed to the development, but I think the changes that were made, which not only are the 2 lots that were mentioned, but additional work with the design director on the design of the houses and some mitigation for vegetation will help tremendously. And I want to thank Mr. Mosier and Mr. Carr for their efforts and agreement to help us get here. So with that, I will close the public hearing. open the public hearing, close the public hearing, and move to approve the staff recommendation, which is to accept the changes and to deny the appeal.
Okay, Councilmember Carr.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I want to make sure I'm not out of bounds here. This is a project that addresses one small development in one council district. Is it appropriate for another council member to ask questions about that?
Always.
Do we need to defer to the council member whose district this is in?
Oh, boy. Well, no, it's a great question. Look, council members have expertise in their district and experience, and they also tend to be the council member most intimately involved in the project, including negotiation and discussion leading up to it. And so I think it's fair to say that we all will provide deference to a respected colleague when it comes to their view of the matter. But it's not the unilateral choice of any single member on any decision. It's not even under our system of government. The mayor cannot even veto an action of the council, darn it. But that's the way it is. So of course it's appropriate to ask questions and to have an opinion, of course.
So that being said, when this originally came to council, I heard two objections. One, vegetation along the freeway was not sufficient. And there was a question about drainage, storm drainage. Have those two issues been resolved? Have there been any changes in those two issues?
That is correct. For stormwater drainage, the project has always been required to manage their own stormwater runoff on site. And for trees along the I-5 sound wall, we did add an extra condition to require, or for the applicant to work with urban forestry and planning staff to plant additional trees along between the project and the I-5 sound wall.
So those two things being satisfied, have we received additional comments from the neighbors about this, or have those been communicated only to the council member? And if they have, I'd like to know what those additional objections are.
I only received one formal written letter of objection, which was included in the staff report after this project was noticed. I've had some informal conversations with members of the community on the phone about the project itself and just asking questions about what's changed.
So the map that you put up, if you could put that back up again.
The original one or the one for
the
today?
original map, yes.
Okay.
You have the proposed project outline, and there are two houses that are already there that are kind of penciled in. Have you received complaints from either one of those two?
No complaints, no.
Okay. So the question comes, why did the developer delete parcels 9 and 10?
Through the iterations of the public hearing process and the information that was heard over the public hearing, including the last council meeting, the applicant had decided to remove lots 9 and 10 from the proposal.
Councilmember Carr, can I just maybe help a little bit?
Go.
Put it into context, is that okay? So, the last time this was heard, it was a proposal for 10 lots. And the Councilmember Hanson will speak for himself in a moment, I'm sure, was not supportive of the project as is. What's before us tonight is not the 10-lot project, it's the 8-lot project. And so if you believe, for example, that if you were to believe that it should be 10 lots, that's not what's before us tonight. The applicant, as I understand it, that's why I asked the foundational question I asked earlier, maybe reluctantly, I'm not saying it was done happily, but amended the application that's before us tonight with 8 lots. And so it's a little bit, it's not really confusing to me, but I assume that the applicant is asking for support of the approval for the 8 lots. But if it was your opinion that 10 lots would have been more appropriate, that's not what's before the city council tonight.
Understand that what's before us.
Okay,
This is the second time we've looked at this.
Yes.
What was before us the first time were 2 complaints about this project. Both of those complaints have been satisfied. There have been no further complaints rendered. Yet the developer has deleted 2 homes. And the question is, what's up with that?
Okay, why don't we hear from Councilmember Harrison? Maybe, were you going to speak, Councilmember Hanson?
Mayor, I addressed the concerns. We've heard this before. We made a negotiated settlement with the project applicant. I would hope Councilmember Carr respects that process, and that's the only additional information that I'll offer.
Okay. Let's hear from Councilmember Harris. We can come back to you if you would like, Councilmember Carr.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, development projects are an interesting interplay between the developer and the community. Certainly the community has a voice in what they want to accept in terms of changes in their neighborhoods. And developers, you know, they face significant challenges. They face opposition sometimes when they have a good project. But there is a give and take, a push and a pull. In this case, there were 2 appeals to the previous iteration. I didn't feel that those appeals had warrant and was not willing to uphold those appeals. But the fact of the matter is, you know, in subsequent conversations, the developer has come up with a project that I think is perfectly acceptable and, you know, satisfies some of the issues that some of the neighbors had. Perhaps not all, perhaps some still don't favor it, but you know, if the developer comes to us with a project and it's not being appealed, I think that he's done his share in terms of being flexible, and perhaps some of the community members have too, so I'll second the motion.
Okay. Thank you very much. Councilmember Carr, do you have anything further? Okay, the motion has been seconded. There's no further public testimony. Would you like us to call the roll on the item? Okay, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Motion passes. Thank you very much. We now move to item 13, which should be a relatively ministerial matter, I hope.
Yes.
Yes, welcome.
Thank you. We're just asking you to waive the 180-day waiting period for a retired annuitant.
Moved and seconded. No public testimony. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain? Thank you.
Thank you.
That's what you call efficient. Okay, what's that? Well, okay, so without objection here, I would like to consolidate, if you will, for purposes of discussion, understanding that they are separate votes, items 14 and 15, and take the public testimony for items 14 and 15 together. And so if, Captain, if you can present for both, we'd sure appreciate it. What are these?
14.
Same item?
No, that's...
Good evening, Mayor and Council. My name is Justin Eklund, and I'm your police captain for the Central City area. And in that role, I hear daily concerns from residents, business owners, and visitors to our city about issues they have with safety and decorum in our parks and in our streets. Those issues affect their livelihood, quality of life, and guest experience. In evaluating how we can help improve the safety of our parks and support our business community and their guests, we evaluated a number of ordinances and best practices from other jurisdictions. Tonight I'm going to present you two proposals that enhance existing ordinances we have and which we feel can help mitigate some of the public concerns and help improve quality of life in our city. The two proposals have been vetted through 2 law and legislation committee sessions along with a number of stakeholder meetings, and I believe what we have before you today represents that process. So the police department and parks department consistently hear concerns from the community about safety and behavior in our parks, and members of our community have relayed their frustration with what they perceive as their inability to use some parks because of behavior of some individuals. So in seeking solutions to their concerns, we've looked at what other jurisdictions have done to mitigate that behavior, including cities of San Francisco, Roseville, Davis, and our state park system. And based on that research, we propose to modify our existing ordinance to include the ability to remove someone from the park who is acting inappropriately. Our current long-standing park ordinance has several sections, one of which includes specified rules for use of the park. In total, that particular section, as you see here, has about 35 prohibited behaviors, some of which I've listed on the screen. Currently, if an officer or one of our park rangers encounters someone who is violating one of those park rules, they can cite the offender for a misdemeanor violation, but they don't have the authority to make the offender leave the park, which can obviously be detrimental to public confidence when the community calls for assistance in a park due to some behavior, and our officers and park rangers don't have the ability to make the offender leave, whether we enforce the ordinance or not. So the proposed modification today that we're proposing, it does not add any new regulations under the existing code. What it does is give officers the ability who take enforcement action for violation of one of those park rules to direct individuals to leave the park and not return for a 24-hour period. So in addition to the citation that an officer or park ranger would issue, they would also issue a notice that excludes the person from the park for 24 hours and specifies clearly the date and time they're allowed to return. If after receiving this notice for the specified 24-hour period, if the subject refuses to leave the park at that time or returns within the designated 24-hour time frame, it would make the individual subject to a misdemeanor arrest. After hearing feedback from stakeholders, we've also modified the sanction for violating park rules. They've always been misdemeanors, and in this process of adding the order to remove someone from the park, we also feel that it is appropriate to reduce the sanction for the park offense down to an infraction from a misdemeanor. And so what we're advocating is that for a first or second time offender for the park violation, that be an infraction citation with the officer or ranger's ability to subject them from removal for the park for 24 hours. Only after a third violation of that would they be subject to a misdemeanor for the original park rules. So in essence, what this does is what we're proposing is to take the original misdemeanor offense, reduce it to a fraction, but also give us the ability to tell the person to leave the park and mandate they leave the park, or they would be subject to a misdemeanor arrest. The one thing with this, if anybody caught it in the staff report mentions second violation being a misdemeanor, and during the different iterations of this, that was just an edit that wasn't removed from the final line of the staff report. So what's proposed in the actual ordinance is third offense within 6 months returns as a misdemeanor violation. The second part of this is just some cleanup language for another section of the park ordinance, 12.72.210. This section allows the city manager, a police officer, a park ranger, to cause to be removed anybody who's using a park or facility and being disruptive and not using for its intended use. This section, although rarely used, doesn't have any sort of enforcement section. For some unknown reason, it was never put in there. So it never had an enforcement mechanism that said, if a park ranger directs you to leave, and an example of this would be going into a public building and disrupting a meeting that's going on, being in the park and not leaving when somebody has reserved it for a permit space. And so in that case, without a criminal sanction, a police officer can say, look, you have to leave the park. But the section never had a sanction for if the person didn't leave. And so what this would do is similar to the other section, subject someone, when given the proper warning to leave the park, subject them to a misdemeanor violation if they refuse to do so. Although these modifications won't prevent all poor behavior in our parks, I think what we're trying to achieve here is to set a new baseline for behavior and signal that, appropriate behavior in our park system is a top priority. So, Mayor, would you like me just to proceed on with the presentation on the next piece without, and take questions after public
Yes, I
comment?
would, please.
Okay. So the next piece is proposing modifications to our aggressive, intrusive solicitation ordinance. So the police department hears concerns consistently from citizens and businesses about safety concerns from customers feeling harassed or threatened by certain types of solicitation. These behaviors negatively affect guest experience and the economic vitality of our city. Our proposal tonight seeks simply to provide some balance to the public safety concerns and an individual's right to solicit a donation. So Sacramento has always had, for the last couple of decades, an aggressive solicitation ordinance on the books. We've also had one that prohibits solicitation from medians and roadways. What we're proposing for you today is to take those two ordinances, meld them into one new ordinance, and add some additional locations where, for public safety reasons, solicitation is restricted. The basis of our ordinance or proposal is modeled after a more comprehensive ordinance in the County of Sacramento that has been in place for some years. The changes include clarifying language around what defines aggressive solicitation, so we cleaned up that language, and address behavior that specifically can be a distraction or a safety issue to motorists and the solicitor themselves, those that are in a vulnerable state when engaged in a financial transaction, or those that are a captive audience and are not free to leave or avoid the unwanted solicitation. So the proposal before you tonight is a result of several modifications made during the law and legislation process. The first one is we removed the original proposal, which was to prohibit solicitation from motorists within 200 feet of an intersection. For consistency purposes, we reduced the sanctioned distances, the prohibited distances from certain locations. We reduced those to 30 feet. In the initial proposal, they ranged from 50 to 35 feet, and we felt that for consistency purposes, 30 feet would be a more appropriate distance. So there's no confusion. 30 feet is an easier measure, 10 yards, 10 to 14 adult steps. It's a very easy visual for the public. So the proposal today, what does it look like? It continues to prohibit aggressive and intrusive solicitation, and it continues to prohibit solicitation from medians and roadways. It prohibits any solicitation from gas stations or fuel pump areas, from anyone in an outdoor dining area of a restaurant or similar establishment, and on public transportation vehicles. It also prohibits any solicitation within 30 feet of an open financial institution, any ATM machines available for use, within 30 feet of driveways accessing business or retail establishments. And again, the prohibition there is from soliciting motor vehicles coming in and out of those parking lots, and from public transportation stops.
Excuse me, we let the captain finish, and everyone will get a chance to testify. Thank you.
So violations of this proposed ordinance.
14 and 15, please. Captain?
Yes, sir. So,
sir, you can't shout out. It's items 14 and 15, okay? That's all. Thank you.
So violations of this proposed ordinance will remain an infraction, except for when an individual has been cited for the third time in a 6-month period. The sanction would rise to a misdemeanor. It's important to note that this ordinance does not deny an individual the right to solicit a donation from another person. It simply places, for public safety reasons, some simple time, place, and manner restrictions on where that can be done. Ultimately, the goal with any law is not enforcement. It's about education and voluntary compliance. The goal with this proposal is about modifying disruptive behavior and improving the quality of life in our city for everyone, and provide opportunities to ensure consistency in our public spaces. And finally, there's some questions probably on what happens if these ordinances are adopted. And so there's 3 things. First off, obviously there's a 30-day window in which the ordinance would take to become actually enacted and become law. In that time period, we have to develop this 24-hour prohibition notice, which is a simple form, but it's going to list basically the time, the place, the person's name, the time that they're allowed, date and time to return. So we have to develop that form. We also, this will be a change in a little bit procedurally, so we have to train. We have a significant number of, obviously, police officers and park rangers in the city, so we're going to have to go through a period where we train them, and then ultimately a public outreach and education component, which will include outreach to the community, business community, and a period of time where, like we do now, we don't strictly enforce. We try to, through education and mediating issues, we try that as a first choice. So there'll be a lot of outreach in the community to make people, business owners, security guards, members of the public, and solicitors themselves aware of the law the best we can before we start enforcement. So with that, Mayor, I think I'll step out of the way and allow for public comment. Yep.
Excuse me, ma'am, you are not going to interrupt the proceedings. No, you're not going to interrupt the proceedings or else you're going to leave. Okay, so if you want to sign a speaker slip, you're welcome to. Otherwise, you're going to leave. Okay? Got to learn how to act in the chambers here, okay? All right. Folks, we have, we're counting them up now, about 19 to 20 witnesses in support. We have about the same number in opposition. Excuse me, for 14 and 15, we are combining them for purposes of the public testimony because they're the same subject matter. That's the discretion. That is the discretion of the chair, and that is going to be the way we're going to do it.
Taking away our voices. You're taking our voices away.
Excuse me, if you want to shout out, I'm going to ask you to leave. So, I think people have more than ample opportunity to be heard on all of these issues, including public testimony weekly on items not on the agenda. So I want to ask, excuse me, I want to ask those in support. I see Mr. Alt, for example, and different representatives of the business associations. Everyone, as I said earlier, is welcome to testify individually, but if the group that's sitting back there would be willing or would like to designate, say, 2 to 3 people and then ask for the rest of the supporters to show up. Not mandatory, you're all welcome to testify, but I just wanted to just put that out there. Why don't we take those in support first? Mr. Alt, you want to lead the charge here?
Excuse me, I wasn't aware that you only took public to a certain time.
Excuse me,
sir. An absentee
sir.
Next week, in case I don't make it early enough.
Yeah.
I'm on public transit. Sometimes
sir, if you want to.
New York City Transit Authority lets you be late for a public government function.
If you want to testify tonight, you're welcome to.
It's late. It's not my fault. It's a public conveyance.
Sir, you need to ask this gentleman to leave because he's disrupting the proceeding. Okay.
I want to be back here next week.
Yes, you can. Yes, fill it out, and we'll take you next week. Yes. Okay. Hold on, Mr. Alt. Hold on. Gentlemen can sign up for next week. That'll be fine. Okay. It's for the first time member here. We don't need a quorum except to vote. The members, I don't know where that comes from. We can listen to the testimony. When it comes to voting, what's that? We're good. You don't need a quorum to listen to the testimony here. Don't. Go ahead, Mr. Alt.
Mayor, members of council, Michael Alt with the Downtown Partnership. Appreciate the opportunity to speak to you tonight. And I would think combining these items is a good opportunity for collective feedback. Behind us here, and we'll have a couple of speakers, and appreciate the opportunity to consolidate that. This really is an issue, in our opinion, of public space management. I think we are in an environment right now where the level of frustration, the level of aggressive behavior in much of the public space, especially in the central city, has not only caused significant impacts to the business community, caused impacts to perception, and even the opportunity for us to continue this momentum downtown. We feel very strongly, based on the feedback that we have received so far, both of these ordinances are critical. And increasing the penalty for significant repeated behavior in our parks is an issue that we can't tolerate. People need to behave appropriately, and we think it's acceptable to make sure to enforce that when that's not the case. Banning aggressive panhandling and repeatedly that we're seeing issues on patios, ATMs, standing in queue lines is appropriate. This is not just an issue related to management of behavior, but it's a public safety issue and an issue of managing the environment in an effective way. So you have, on behalf of the Downtown Partnership, we've got Emily Bay Michaels from the Midtown Business Association and a lot of other PBIDs here that are fully in support of this, and we ask you to move this forward.
Excuse me, just, again, I appreciate it. I assume maybe you talked to folks. If I could read the names of the folks who are here so that their names are in the record. Again, you're welcome to testify, but if you feel like your message is being represented, you can stand up. We will then move to the opposition, okay, after we hear from a few others. Whoever, Ernesto Delgado, Tracy Schall, Bay Miri, Kimio Bazette, Kathleen Gilby, Elizabeth Kim, sorry, A. Rose, Doug Warren, Mike Testa, Shelley Marinville, David Taylor, Brooksy Hughes, Leazette Arnold, Jameson Parker, Terry Harvigo, and Bob Simpson. You all here? Can you all stand up, please? Register, the record will register by virtue of my reading your names that you are in support of the ordinance. Again, not precluding anybody from coming up to testify, but we'll assume you won't unless you line up right here, okay? Thank you, Mr. Alt.
Thank you.
Okay.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the Council, City Manager Chan. My name is Mike Testa. I'm with Visit Sacramento. Behind me, I'm represented with the hospitality community, including the Residence Inn, the Sheraton Grand, the Marriott Village Cal Expo, and the Sacramento Hotel Association. As you know, the primary task of Visit Sacramento is to market our city to potential visitors and bring their outside financial investments and economic impacts into our community to benefit our residents. Recent reviews and comments regarding Sacramento on TripAdvisor.com show an alarming pattern. I'll just highlight a few. Of concern to us was the safety outside the hotel. Never saw that when we stayed in the downtown area before. As two females walking around one morning at 7 a.m., we were very uncomfortable and did not feel safe and headed back to the hotel. I would not stay again. Please be careful when walking out at night and in the early morning. Please stay alert, walk in lighted areas, and walk with a partner if possible. If you have older kids who like to explore on their own, please make sure they understand this. We've seen a tremendous rise in aggressive and belligerent activity across Sacramento. Aggressive behavior has no place in our city. Intimidation, implied threats, and hostile actions towards others are not acceptable actions. Visit Sacramento supports this ordinance because it will protect and maintain our safe, clean, and welcoming community. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other of the people in support here desiring to testify? If not, yes, sir. Okay, come on up. Okay, just identify yourself, please.
My name is Sigmund Lindley. I'm with Thai Basil Restaurant in Midtown. I've been with business owner and property owner in Midtown for the last 15 years. I'd like to say Midtown is an ecosystem of people, life, and businesses, and its success depends on attractive and sustainable businesses, higher density of diverse housing, options for the homeless population today, and a clean and safe environment, including public restrooms for everyone. I'd like to highlight a couple of incidents that occurred recently in my own restaurant. We were broken into last week for the third time in 15 years. Our staff who live a few blocks away are being confronted touched and grabbed when walking to and from work. McDonald's near Alhambra now has a security guard, and I've had a customer tell me that this is a good move on their part. And people hang out next door to our patio, front door, soliciting, shouting, and at times entering the restaurant with activity that is threatening and alarming to our staff, and our staff is not equipped to handle these situations. I am in favor. I started by saying this is an ecosystem in Midtown. To be healthy, all parts must work together. But I feel that this might be a bit of a Band-Aid, and that there are larger issues that need to be addressed on a larger scale. And I think housing is a huge issue. This gentleman right here had some really interesting comments about housing and lockers and parking. Sacramento can follow the convoy of slow decision-making, or it can take bold steps and be a leader. And I encourage the council to move forward and make smart decisions. And I think this is a good one, but it needs to be in context of a larger problem.
Thank you so much. Okay. Okay, thank you for your testimony. Let's move to the opposition now.
The speakers I have for opposition is Robert Copeland, Wanda Cleveland, and then Fung Lee. Mr. Copeland?
Have you ever decided what the root cause of this panhandling ordinance is? Your lack of housing. Can't you get it? You're not listening to us, Mayor Steinberg and City Council. We need more housing in Sacramento. And I feel more dangerous around the people driving their cars than the homeless population. Because I've almost got hit several times by people that don't obey the rules of the people that are driving or on bicycles. They're more dangerous than the homeless population, in my opinion. What are you going to do about them? I've seen people, even city employees, go the wrong way on a one-way street. And almost people get hit by that. You're not doing a good job. I mean, really, you seriously, this panhandling and this park rules, how should I put this? Asinine. You're not getting it. I feel safe around the homeless population than the people driving their cars in Midtown, in downtown. I live in Midtown.
Hey, Robert, anything else?
This is a joke.
You're opposed to this.
This Midtown Partnership and the Downtown Business Association and all the other, they should come up with a real solution. You're just going to criminalize people. You're going to make desperate people even more desperate, and they're going to do, let's say, go to jail because they're going to be shoplifting or doing other crimes because of this ordinance. Have you ever considered that? Get your act together and solve the solution to the homeless population, and you will have less panhandling.
Thank you, Robert.
My next speaker is Wanda Cleveland, and then Fong Lee.
I know, I suggest, why don't you just put handcuffs on all of us? Don't let us do anything, because after all, the law is the law, and you guys are all the law, right? You're the one that tells us what we can do. You don't listen to any of us. You can give a damn. Yeah, you can give a damn. That's the way I look at it right now. Panhandling, people have to eat. Most of the people can't even get food stamps. Do you know what it's like to live on poverty wages? How about SSI? Because you can't work. Because you've been taunted by your employers or employees that have been unfairly treated you. How would you like that? We're all one step to being on the homeless population. And you guys want to keep on regulating and organizing and keeping us from doing the things that need to be done? You're depriving us of our right to have fairness in life. If we don't have a place to go, you can't beat us. You can't lay us down and stomp on us. That's what you're doing. With every damn ordinance that you guys put in there, every damn thing that you guys place in here, the whole population is not happy. And maybe none of you care. I have a home right now, but I could not have a home tomorrow. I'm on SSI. I'm on here. I'm trying to survive like everybody else. And if I make it better for them, it will be better for me.
Next speaker is Fong Lee, and then Bob Erlenbush.
Yeah, I'm pissed now. Yeah, you think it's funny, but it's not.
We're not shouting out, Wanda. I understand you're upset. Please.
Stop minimizing people.
Yes.
Start listening. I'm going to start off with a poem, Monsters. I have seen monsters in my life. They wear suits and justify their lies. These monsters have blood of the poor on their hands. They wait, they pray. All the while they ask for prayers and a helping hand. One nation under God, they pray. While their eyes vacant, roll to the back of the darkened cave, justice kept in chains, carcasses of their victims hidden. They have no shame in their heart. Killing becomes an accomplished art. The public, in their denial of truth, becomes the most willing accomplices. Killing is a sport and entertainment. You sit there and you fucking laugh.
Excuse me. Excuse me.
I became very spirited.
That is not appropriate for this chamber.
Thank you.
You're going to apologize to the mayor and the council.
No,
I want the woman in the back. One more word and you're out. And hear that?
Did you stop my time?
No.
They relish in the kill, blood still dripping from their lips as they meet and confer, conjuring up more illusions to uphold a flawed institution. I've seen these monsters dressed in Armani suits, standing before the cameras, handling out coveted keys to the city. These monsters pretend to sleep in their stare and sip it.
Ms. Lee,
Then
you're done.
pounce.
You're done.
When
Your
they
testimony's
are weakest
over.
and complacent. Their doorway and
Thank you.
halls
You're
stained
done.
with
Wanda,
blood that
Wanda,
this young
excuse
that
me.
they've drained.
You need, okay.
Holding hostage the
This is it. Ms. Lee.
I witnessed these monsters.
Excuse me.
These monsters
don't
are
need it,
afraid.
okay?
Only when we speak from love.
Ms. Lee, you need to leave the chamber. And Wanda, you need to leave the chamber, please. You shouted out 3 times. I respect the fact that you're angry and that you disagree with the policy, but we must maintain levels of decorum in the chamber. And where it's not practiced consistently, I'm sorry, I need to enforce the rule. I'm going to ask you to leave tonight. I like you and respect you, but please leave. And Ms. Lee, you the same. You know you're not supposed to use profanity in the chambers, and you do. You always do. So you need to leave. Thank you. Right now. Right now, and Wanda, you need to leave as well. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. You have the right to express yourself peacefully and with respect, even if you're angry, but that's it. Please leave. Next testimony.
How about what you do in here?
Thank you.
8 minutes away from us.
Out.
You don't listen to us.
Out.
You don't. You know what? You're out. You know what?
minutes.
You're going to be recalled. Every one of you. Every one of you recalled.
Thank you. And Ms. Lee,
Seat away.
you need to leave. Thank you.
Tell every one of you
Thank
guys
you.
find out what poverty really is.
Thank you.
Because you don't know.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Okay, next speaker, please, Mr. Erlenbush. Thank you.
And then following Mr. Erlenbush is Grace Loescher.
Good evening. My name is Bob Erlenbush. I'm the Executive Director of the Sacramento Regional Coalition to End Homelessness. I'm passing out a one-page fact sheet that on challenges to bans of restrictions on panhandling, all
8 cases, 7 of them federal, and it lists the court, the case, the claim, the year, and the outcome. Since 2013, but mostly since 2015, all federal cases and 1 state court ruled restrictions on panhandling is unconstitutional. It was stated in the Law and Ledge Committee, I think in October, that County Council, at the question from Councilmember Harris, said that Eureka and Sacramento County both have panhandling ordinances and have not been sued. That actually is not correct. Sacramento County was sued, and Eureka lawsuit was filed just about 2 months ago in September of this year. Third, much of the testimony by the business community, which I totally understand frustration, but really at Law and Ledge especially, was focused on behavior. Behavior in some cases driven by mental health issues, potentially by substance use issues, but not the sheer act of asking for money. I would like to put to you that this proposed ordinance is a total distraction which ultimately criminalizes homeless people. It's a distraction of the good work that you've already started in earnest. Full funding, full implementation of the Whole Person Care Act will address the behavior issues. And you should be applauded for each of your leadership working with the county. But turning around a week later and passing an ordinance that further criminalizes homeless people and low-income people is counterproductive. And finally, create a homeless employment program to address the income inequity issues. Just one last thought. You seemed very supportive of the many people who spoke about the cannabis issue, looking at that issue through the equity lens. It is time that this city and county looked at the homeless issue through the same equity lens. Thank you.
Our next speaker is Grace Loescher, Nikki, and then Fago.
Council and my friends in support in the back. Changing the culture of any city to promote values of compassion and respect does not happen quickly and does not happen without fight. At this present moment, Council holds within its hands the great responsibility to set a tone for the culture of Sacramento. Will we continue to be the city that works so assiduously to hide poverty from the public eye so that the privileged are not bothered by the unsightliness of social stratification? Or will we, for once, concede to the certainty that poverty and homelessness are all around us, and hiding such realities under the guise of public safety is a bigoted and woeful execution of leadership? If City Council does choose to move forward with the ordinance, an ordinance which will decidedly inflict irreparable damage on the most underprivileged Sacramento community members who I am obliged to remind you should also be protected rather than persecuted by public health and safety laws, then I implore you to be honest with your constituents in the implementation of this policy. Rather than calling it the aggressive panhandling ordinance, call it the unsightly poverty law. Tell the public that this ordinance, which restricts an individual's most basic liberty to obtain survival, is created in an effort to make wealthy people feel a little less uncomfortable when they walk down the street. Within 30 feet of an ATM, 30 feet of public transit stops, 30 feet of driveways, you all perceptive leaders of our community know that these codes exile panhandlers to remote corners of isolation where they will assuredly come into contact with no human beings and have zero odds of making money for survival. By voting to pass this ordinance, you are making the commitment to your community to, number one, uphold laws that further criminalize and ostracize the poor in the interest of the rich. Number two, increase the number of individuals experiencing homelessness in Sacramento by taking away the only means of making money for hundreds living in poverty. And number three, proceed with the cowardly charade that paints ordinances such as this one as safety measures, when in fact they are murderous to so many of the population. It is with great hope that I ask you to consider your own strength of character and respect for human life and liberty when casting your vote on this ordinance. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Our next speaker is Nikki, and then Fago, and then Farah.
Tonight, I am sad. Tonight, I'm afraid. I'm sad to watch more demoralization in the eyes of my friends and neighbors who live outside. Those that know deep in their tired bones that there is nowhere in the city or county where it is safe or legal to sleep tonight or have their belongings. I am sad for those that know the city is here tonight, further deciding their survival. You're not deciding the survival of the city, our business interests. You're deciding the survival of individuals with this choice. I'm sadder still for those that don't know and will find out in the form of a court date and a fine. This, the criminalization of their attempt to survive by reaching out to a fellow human. I know people who panhandle for medication copays, for diapers, for a night in a motel, for a warm shower and a good night's sleep. And yes, for a beer to stay warm when it's cold at night. I bet you would too. These restrictions on asking for help are the institutionalization of classist sentiments that tear at the heart of the poor and those that care. These sentiments have no place in lawmaking. As Pastor Gainsborough reminds us, the good book says, God will judge those who harass the poor in court with citations. How can the council deny that that's what this is, to harass the poor in court with citations? I'm afraid for the further and deepening struggle to survive for my friends. Cutting off legal means of survival only pushes people farther to the edges of society where underground, less safe economies become the only option. This is a fear repeated to me upon hearing about this ordinance over and over again by my friends outside. Make no mistake, also, like all other enforcement, this will come down heaviest on our Black and brown communities. These are safety concerns far more substantiated than those that attempt to prop up this ungodly and unconstitutional attempt to limit the asking for help in public places. This is class war. The captain's explanation proves that our motive to move this forward is grounded particularly in our desire to provide a better guest experience and a better business environment.
Thank you for wrapping up.
These reasons do not meet the strict scrutiny required for a content-based restriction on free speech. Check back with your lawyers, you guys. 2015, when our last case was challenged,
I need you to wrap it up, please.
Yeah, the Reed case hadn't gone through yet. This will get challenged in court. Do you have the hundreds of thousands of dollars to support that? I'm sure you do.
Thank you.
Speaker is Fago and then Farah.
So, by passing these ordinances, you are basically declaring war on your homeless population. You're basically saying survival is illegal. You're saying that the First Amendment doesn't apply to the homeless. Are you going to pass these same restrictions for people protesting outside of a business? Do we have to now protest 30 feet away from the business's entrance? Well, that'd be a violation of the Constitution. In fact, several states have already ruled this exact kind of language unconstitutional and a violation of the First Amendment. So you might want to do some more research on your declarations of war, because what you're going to do, you say this is for public health and safety. How is taking people that already are desperate and taking away the one way they have to try to make money that doesn't hurt anybody, helping public health and safety? You're going to add to crime. There's people out there that when they can't ask for help, they're going to resort to other measures. And those measures may or may not be safer than asking for help. The act of asking for help should never be criminalized. Shoot, you guys ask everybody for help all the time, but you don't get criminalized for it. Shoot, how much did you have to panhandle to get your way into office? You know, but I guess that's okay if you've got a bunch of money already, you know. The people that have can ask for whatever they want, but the people that have not get pretty much a death sentence. Get told your life doesn't have any value. Get told that you don't mean anything. You do the superficial, oh, we're gonna make this housing for a specific part of the community, but the rest of you can go to jail for all we care. Yeah, way to go. This is a declaration of war. You passed this ordinance tonight? You think we've been rowdy so far? You ain't seen nothing yet.
Our next speaker is Farah, then Stan C., and then Paulo Lamazzi.
First, I would like to address consent item 14, whereby they will remove adults from public.
Not appropriate. We're not at. We passed the consent calendar. You can address the items that are before the city council.
14.
You said consent calendar.
I apologize for speaking.
Sorry. Go ahead, please.
The removal of adults from public parks, I believe that's a huge mistake, especially for the business community, because where do you think that those homeless people are going to go? Straight to the businesses, where they would not normally be going and hanging out if the public restrooms weren't closed. I've seen this. I've worked in Midtown for almost a decade now, and I've seen the migration of the homeless people when they are pushed out from downtown to Midtown, pushed out from the river to Midtown. Now they're going to be pushed out from the public parks. Where are they going to go? And I'll tell you, I'll be the first one to bus them to every single one of your front yards. Second, I would like to address the issue of panhandling. Panhandling, like has been said over and over tonight, is a means of people's very survival. This is literally a death sentence for hundreds and hundreds of Sacramento residents. These are our neighbors, our brothers, our sisters, our mothers, our cousins, uncles. Many of them have mental health issues that God only knows what will happen when the captain comes in contact with them, because I tell you, I'm a lot more fearful of this captain than I am of any homeless person in the city of Sacramento.
Our next speaker is Stan C., Paulo Lamazzi, and then Trina Allen.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Just piggyback on what Farrah said. Yeah, where do you think they're going to go? You know, they're not scared. At that point, what are you scared of? You're going to go to jail anyway. Your means of survival are gone. You don't care, and these aren't just. It's inhumane to do that. And furthermore, how can you stand that? I mean, it's just like business, you know? To the whole world, you look like a joke. Like, they're like, you know what? You have no soul. You have no soul. What is money? I mean, they're not going to come to this city. You just look like a bunch of soulless, bureaucrats. And it's wrong. It's wrong. The people don't support it. I'll tell you that. I see people around here that got good hearts, and they help the homeless. They don't support this, and you know it.
Allen.
Hi, good evening. I'm with the Sacramento Homeless Organizing Committee, and our mission is to amplify the voice of homeless and low-income community to accomplish economic and social justice. We are very appreciative of our constitutionally protected freedom of speech, helping us to accomplish our mission goals and allowing all people to freely use their voices and words to connect with others and to relate to the world around them. So other than, well, I wanted to put this up there too. So other than approaching someone actually in the process of using an ATM or in the process of getting their money out to buy an RT pass, the 30-foot distance restriction is a random requirement, with the only accomplishment being to restrict the voice of homeless people. So right here, so this is just like a bus stop's right here, and then there's a person over here, and this person can't panhandle even though there's no one here at the bus stop. So that would be against the law for them to do that. So it's just arbitrary. And that person, if there was somebody at the bus stop and this person wanted to intimidate that person over there, you know, or try to get them to get money, that would be pretty hard to do. I just wanted to point out that that 30 feet is like pretty far away. Also, the solicitors will not naturally know how far 30 feet away is. There won't be a circumference line drawn with signage of the restricted boundaries. And the solicitors will not receive warnings that they are in violation before being cited from all the places that would potentially be restricted. Oh, so I just wanted to urge you not to pass the changes to this ordinance. We want you to protect free speech in our community for all people, even for the poor. Thank you.
Next speaker is Trina Allen, and then Jillian Molina.
I don't really have much to say because I feel like I
that you already know what I'm going to say. But I was scrolling through my Facebook feed, and I saw this quote from a person I typically would normally ask them, and I don't really have a chance. So Ashley Yates, I hope this is okay. Abusive people consistently try to police the response to the abuse they inflicted. And I feel like that this is really what this issue is about. This is cruel, targeted, and violent. Folks are suffering, people are dying at the hands of your anti-Black police department, and the collective response is to direct them to harass and arrest more people. It doesn't make sense. The least thing we should be able to do is ask each other for help. It's just like a very basic thing to be able to ask you to be nice and kind and, hey, could you give me a few dollars? Like, that's nothing. That's really nothing. And nobody is panhandling aggressively. If someone was being violent and vicious and dangerous, that's a whole different issue. There's already laws for that, right? You can't go up and hit people. Like, we already know that that's battery, right? You can't go up and assault people. That's assault. This is only targeted against people who are in poverty, people who are vulnerable, people who have mental health issues. God, you know this. Y'all know this. And yet you continue to push these types of things, and your real agenda is to smile those people and give them what they want. That like shameless that you read off, it's gross. And the people that are suffering are dying. The people that are inconvenienced by looking at something that they contribute to, that's just accountability.
Next speaker is Jillian Molina, then Mackenzie Wilson, and then A. Rose.
Okay, I have actually just a few questions for the captain. So the questions that I have are this. Prior to implementation, and would the LEOs be given the training prior to implementation, or would that commence after? Because I think the training should begin before. I'd also like to know about whether or not that training would include some type of PROACT technique or de-escalation training. I would also like to know if any sort of mental health crisis teams were part of that response, because I agree with what I'm hearing. It seems very punitive.
You do, if I may, and I will stop the clock, just because you raised something I think is important to respond to. I don't know if you're aware, but last week, the County Board of Supervisors voted 5-0 to put forward over $40 million over 3 years for mental health services to couple with the city's whole person care grant. So we're elevating the priority of mental health services for the homeless population in Sacramento in a very significant way, beginning now.
Yeah, I just want to be sure that this initiative, that mental health piece is there kind of in the forefront, rather, than being omitted, because I think that's a very important piece. I myself was a volunteer in McClatchy Park for many, many years, and it's true, many of these are substance use, mental health, right? Many of them live around the park, so that's huge. It's very different from someone who lives out in Roseville, that you studied those case studies. They don't actually live so adjacent to where people walk, congregate. So you have to kind of consider that as well when you're looking at the different neighborhoods. So I wanted to just address that. I understand about the MHSA monies and things that are coming in, but I think it's important before you implement to make sure that those things are in place, that the LEOs are trained, that we have more community policing to go in to address these kinds of behaviors and so forth, that we understand, we recognize the behaviors that people are exhibiting, and know how to direct them to those resources, rather than just issuing citations, misdemeanors, jail, and so forth. No one benefits from that. So that's it. That's just what I wanted to share.
Thank you.
Mackenzie Wilson, and then A. Rose.
For sure. Oh, wow, for sure. Thank you.
Well, that's kind of the point, right? You guys just put together $108 million to address mental health services, and then we show up the very next week to see your further attack on this community. So this is why I said last time we all saw each other, a couple of us, why would I trust a single thing that you have to say? especially because the BIDs in this room have been lobbying in this space under the word decorum. That's what you guys have been using?
I'd like you to address
I
the
can
council.
totally look you in the eye. So here's what we know, right? Is that our houseless population is at a place that you don't know what to do. Your initiative to put 200 beds together, didn't you guys just close a shelter and are now just using those funds to reopen one? We have a waiting list of 70,000 for affordable housing. The plans for shelter and housing is for like what, like 10%. There's no effective rent control, protection of tenants. There's a continuing loss of home ownership, criminal lack of new affordable housing because you guys all decided to gut the affordable housing bill that we had. So like, this is where I'm at, is like, I just found out that there's like this long line of, actually I have the papers for everyone in this room to go ahead and grab from me, this long list of what it is that you guys have done to attack people in poverty in this city. And so my kind of like what I'm leaving here today is just letting you know that where that $108 million is going to be heavily watched, right? We're gonna be heavily paying attention to what it is, because we know that you wanna do a surveillance program, right? Like you just wanna figure out who's costing you the most money for going into the emergency rooms. We know that your whole idea is to find the money, but we have it. We pay taxes, the bids have been getting money. Where is the housing? Where are you going to put people up to house, Dale Steinberg?
Your time is up. Thank you.
Yeah.
We'll answer that question.
Yeah,
Thank
what
you.
is it?
Your time is up. Thank
But
you.
I'm asking you a question.
Oh, I'm not going to answer your question
Well, isn't
right
that
now.
why I come here?
This
Is
is
for
your
you guys
public
to answer these
testimony.
questions?
I'd be happy to answer the question in my close, okay? Thank
In your
you.
close?
Thank you.
Like
Next
when you say
speaker.
goodbye?
Next speaker.
Like when you say, I'm trying
Mackenzie-
to understand what you're
Mackenzie-
saying, Daryl.
I'm not going to get into this with you. You're done. Next speaker.
Yeah, sure.
Next,
I mean,
next,
come on out.
next
They're in front of
speaker.
mine.
Call the next speaker, please.
Next
Thank
speaker,
you.
my next speaker is A. Rose, and the final speaker is Fernando.
Good evening, City Council members. I'm here today as a concerned neighbor, a local activist, and an active member of Sacramento's legal community. My colleagues and I have been following this proposed ordinance for months as it goes back to ledge review, as you make changes to it, and ultimately you have provided no new analysis and no new information for the duration that you've been proposing this ordinance. You just continue to present the same ordinance over and over again, and make no mistake, this ordinance is unconstitutional on its face. This ordinance proposes to solve the problem, quote unquote, of aggressive panhandling, and yet the record is completely devoid of any credible, objective evidence that there is a rise in aggressive panhandling. And in fact, you are required to show that there is a substantial or a compelling government need in order to impinge on the First Amendment rights of these folks that live outside. And you have failed to do so. There is nothing in the record that shows that there is a need for this ordinance. A close reading of this ordinance shows that it is very vague, and it seeks to prohibit panhandling from many different locations, like roadways, driveways, shopping centers, retail establishments, restaurants, and the list goes on and on. It is so vague that a person does not know how to comply with this. And while purportedly targeting aggressive panhandling, in reality, it is targeting any panhandling or any solicitation, which is a protected right under the Constitution. In those rare instances where aggressive solicitation actually poses a threat, there are already laws on the books, both in tort and criminal, and the part statutes. There's so many. So I ask you to take a step back and actually really analyze what you're doing here. Thank you.
Thank you for your testimony.
Our last speaker this evening is Fernando.
Welcome. Hi. Hi. Let's move the mics down if you can.
Definitely.
Is there a stool or anything? Or
Oh, he doesn't need it. He's a big boy.
Okay.
He's all right.
Okay. Very good. Welcome.
Steinberg, the first time I met you, I asked what you were going to do for the homeless. And as a kid, I'm very sad to realize that the ordinance is only a legal way to continue to murder poor people. I'm very disappointed in all you, and one day I will take office and make things
Young
right.
man, thank you for coming to City Hall tonight and expressing your opinion, even if it's a hard one to hear, because you did so in an intelligent and in a respectful way, and you should keep coming to City Hall to express yourself, whether you agree or disagree with any of us, okay? Thank you, that's the way to do it.
I used to do that.
Okay, that's the public testimony. We do it by sign up, so that is the public testimony for this evening. I do not have any council members sign up. Is there a motion on the item? Jeff, you have a comment. I know I have some comments, but comments and questions. Councilman Harris.
After hearing all that testimony, certainly a lot of concerns were raised. You know, there are a lot of people in this town. There are wealthy and indigent. There are housed and unhoused. But there is a common thread here, which is that everybody deserves to be safe. Homeless people deserve to be safe, as well as people who have homes, under all circumstances. You know, I want to be clear about something. I've spent a lot of time outdoors in Sacramento. I represent District 3, where the bulk of the homeless people reside. I've been out on the streets plenty. I've seen good behavior and bad. And the fact of the matter is, I was going to speak mostly about number 14, about parks. If you listen to what Captain Eklund said, the offense was lowered from a misdemeanor to an infraction, but it does give the police the right to remove people from a park if they displayed belligerent behavior. I've seen lots of that in parks. I've seen lots of people feel unhappy and unsafe being in their parks, and that includes children and families. That's not okay. This ordinance is about bad behavior, and it doesn't matter whether it is an indigent person, a homeless person, a housed person, because that happens plenty too. This is about behavior in parks that should not ever be tolerated. And I think it's a very fair ordinance. We've heard it twice at Lawn Ledge, and this is the second time coming to council. It's been vetted with many groups, and a lot of discussion's been had about this ordinance. It is a fair balance. And the fact of the matter is, if we allow our parks to be places where people cannot feel safe to recreate, then we're really losing something very precious in terms of living in Sacramento. And that applies to homeless people too. And I mean that. Homeless people deserve to feel safe in parks. Sometimes they don't either. You know, Mr. Erlenbush raised an idea that some of this is exacerbated by mental infirmity and drug use, and that's absolutely true. In fact, most of the bad behaviors that I've seen amongst the homeless population had a lot to do with heroin and meth, and certainly other mental infirmities, you know, schizophrenia and psychosis amongst them. So what do you do about that? You don't just let people wander around. Now, the assumption here is that we just want to arrest people and criminalize their behavior. I can tell you that I've seen the police in action many, many, many days. I've seen the impact team encounter people who were having episodes, who were acting erratically, and who were very threatening. And they handle it with great aplomb and try to find services for those people. And they're not actually interested in arresting them.
Nick, excuse me, Jeff. Excuse me, Councilman Harris. Nikki, you're going to have to leave. Nikki, you're going to have to leave. Thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you. We don't shout out from the dais. Thank you.
From the dais, yeah.
I mean, from the audience, excuse me. Thank you.
So it goes both ways. You know, whether you agree with this or not, I think that you probably would agree that everybody deserves to be safe. And the people who are exhibiting aggressive behavior have issues that need to be dealt with. Sometimes that means removal from a park. Sometimes it's extreme enough that it requires arrest. Sometimes our impact team can connect them with mental health services. So, you know, there's lots of ways to work on that, but the fact of the matter is, this ordinance, especially number 14, is balanced and fair, and I certainly move the item, Mr. Mayor, because I think it's a good idea.
Been moved in second. Councilmember Hanson, do you have a comment on both items?
I'll move them both.
Yep.
14 and 15.
Okay. All right, I have a comment, but I want to ask Captain Eklund a question here first. What's that?
Interject one thing.
Yes, go ahead.
Yep. I just wanted to first, Captain, thank you and Mr. Sanchez for all the work you've done. I know that it doesn't please everybody. I know that this is a tough situation, but I also I know that it's been recently announced that you'll be rotating to a different command. I think that's known, and I just wanted to publicly take an opportunity to thank you and your team for all the work you're doing, both to get ahead of some of these issues, but also to use the empathy and compassion that I've seen through officers, particularly through the impact team and the day-to-day patrol officers, to address a lot of these problems. And you've done a stupendous job, and I think you deserve our admiration.
Thank you.
Captain Eklund, one of the realities of our homeless crisis is that you, I know, run into a lot of people who have mental health and substance abuse problems who, at least initially, are resistant to help. Is that correct?
It is.
Okay. And so, as we build out whole person care and gain access to the mental health money that we talked a lot about last week, is there a plan to develop a protocol by which anyone who is arrested or cited for a quality of life crime, sort of as described here in the proposed ordinance, is the police department and this going to help develop a protocol to help refer those people to... Excuse me, you must leave. Please ask Trina to leave. Thank you. Number 4, you can't shout out from the audience. Okay. No? No. Let me finish asking my question. Are you developing a protocol, a connection to the courts, to the mental health courts, to try and refer anybody who may get cited under any of these ordinances to treatment to mental health treatment and or substance abuse treatment?
Yeah, so a couple pieces of that, and in part of my answer will include one of the questions that one of the folks who came up in public comment asked about training for our officers. And so we do go through training and dealing with people in crisis and mental health issues. In fact, this council funded this year an opportunity for all our officers to go through an additional 40-hour course in crisis intervention training. So that is part
My
of...
second week on the job, by the way.
There you go.
I mean, just so it's clear.
Good job. Part of our
it's true.
overall, training and dealing with these issues. We do work closely with mental health court, both our DA's office and city attorney's office, and we have cases where we feel that the underlying issue is mental health. We do try to work through solutions through mental health court or find creative ways to do that, and we only hope through the programs that are coming online that you've spoke about already that we increase that ability.
Good. I'll come back to my comments in a minute because I have other council members up on the board here. Councilman Chenier.
Thank you, Mayor. One question, Captain. And first of all, thank you for the work. And this is the 4th hearing now that we've had on these two, between the 2 at council and the 2 that we had at Law and Ledge. And we've done a lot of outreach and we've tried to talk to people. And there's a lot of folks who are certainly not going to be happy at the end of the day. I think this is really around tools for you guys to use. I agree with Mr. Harris. We're actually stepping down the parks regulations, and everyone deserves to feel safe in the parks. I mean, our parks are used by incredibly large groups of our community, and that's an important amenity that we can provide in Sacramento, and we need to make sure that people feel safe there, and I know that's been a challenge. So I don't see on the number 14, I don't see any behaviors that we would ask somebody to leave for that should be allowable to the parks. I'm kind of echoing what Mr. Harris said. That's pretty straightforward to me. The panhandling one is more difficult, and I know that we struggled with it, and we talked a lot about kind of the 30 feet and what that means. The one, and I think in the big picture, there are people with mental health and substance abuse problems, and we have to deal with that. For the rest of the population, to me, the answer is twofold. It's jobs and housing, but jobs need businesses to be there, and if businesses can't survive for whatever reason, we don't have jobs. So it all rolls into that, and I think we need to support, particularly our local businesses that are downtown, to say we know that you're dealing with a lot. If you look at what's happened in Chavez Park, we have somebody in there who's invested quite a bit to open a restaurant, but he's also employing quite a few people, and those people hopefully will be able to find homes and do that. I think that we have to strike that balance. It's a hard thing to do, and I understand it, and I don't think, absent the 40 hours that we were putting in on mental health training, this is not work that many of our police signed up to do, or not what they thought that they would be doing, but they are, and I think they're doing overall a good job. The challenge that I have with the 30 feet, and I've talked a little bit to the mayor about this as well, is that you have physical barriers that might get in the way. So, if someone is at an ATM and you're, right next to a large street, the fact that they would have to stand on the other side of the street doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, because they're not going to be doing the panhandling. I don't want to, that could take the form of walls. It could take the form of a whole lot of physical barriers. And we've had this discussion. We've had the same discussion in a lot of, cannabis 600 feet away from a school, or tobacco 600 feet away from the school, things like that. So I don't want to hold this up, because I think we've had a lot of discussion about it. I think we need to move forward. I appreciate, and I think the answer would be that the training would come before implementation of this, and that this is really a last resort for you guys to use. I would hope, and we'll be working with everyone on this, that when you have somebody with a mental health problem, giving them a citation or putting them in jail is not helping the situation. It's not solving anything. What we're going to do, or what we want to do, is, with the fact that we now have resources, those resources should be put to use on and for these individuals who have problems. But what I would appreciate is, as we move forward in implementation of this, one, that we get kind of regular reports. And to me, the reports are how many infractions, how many citations are we running. And so I don't know that has to be an item on the agenda, but I would like to see it as information items back to us on, once you start implementing, and whenever that is, if you'll let us know, even on a monthly basis. And I'd like that to be public. People should know what we're doing, both through these two things. And so I'd ask the city manager to make sure that happens. And I think all of the advocates and all the organizations who work on homelessness should be able to get that information. I'd like also, if we could kind of track and give some more thought to the physical barriers piece, because it doesn't, we're doing, in a way, a one-size-fits-all when the physical geography doesn't really demand that. So I don't want to hold up tonight, and I don't know that there's a simple solution for that. But I guess you or your successor, whoever that is, if we can kind of keep that on the radar and maybe have some discussions with some of our folks who actually participated in where we got to today. Not that they might have liked the result, but we did listen. And I also want to say, when we started this out, we started with 5 different ordinances. They have changed quite a bit since we started. At least one of them is no longer, we kind of left to the side. That is what was happening outside here. So, I disagree when people say we haven't listened. We have. We might have a different viewpoint and a different idea of where we need to land on this, certainly, than some of the people in the audience. But we have spent a lot of time. We've had a lot of discussion about this. And again, kind of bottom line is, both in our parks and in the city, people need to feel safe. Businesses need to be able to run their businesses without interference, so that they can make their living, so that they can employ people, so that those people can have lives as well. So I want to thank you for the job, and you guys moved and seconded, but I'm in support of both these. I'd like to see them go through today.
Thank you. Councilman Carr.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I agree, Mr. Chenier. A lot of times when you don't agree, people think you aren't listening. Well, you hear them loud and clear. You just don't agree with them. And but I wanted to say two things. One, when we were doing the use of force policy and reviewing post your training requirements, we already had a substantial amount of training over and above what the state required for mental illness and de-escalation. And the council supported even more training, as you just revealed. But people still don't know that. I think we have to do a better job of getting the word out. And there are always going to be new people who just walk in and think the train just started right now.
Right.
This train has been moving a long time. And I think it's a criticism of all of us, not just the police department, but all of the city and all the nonprofits. We don't do really a good job of advertising what we do. I know you're going to be reviewing this policy, and I just heard Councilmember Chenier ask for some updates, and obviously there would be some changes. When you get to the part about gasoline refueling stations, we're entering an age when it's more than just gasoline. In fact, some of these fueling options will require you to be in one place, a captive audience, for much longer than it takes to fill a tank of gasoline. So you might want to take a look at that and see how we can word that to include those other fueling options.
Okay.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Carr. Vice Mayor Jennings.
I'll yield the microphone to Councilmember Chenier for a second.
I just wanted to answer Mr. Erlenbush. So Mr. Harris and I and some of our staff did visit Reno. We did a day with the job program up there. We think they do a really good job. We are going to institute that with the triage center and the shelter up in the north area and get that going. So absolutely.
So, Captain, I think the thing that I really want to make sure that I understand, and I want the public to understand as well, is as we move towards implementation, there has to be public outreach and public education to the changes that we're moving forth. And I just want to make sure that I understand clearly how we're going to do that public outreach and do that public education, because if we're talking about changing behavior that is unacceptable, behavior that makes people feel unsafe, behavior that is not something that we want to see in our parks or in our gas stations or in our ATMs or in our financial institutions or in our restaurants. If we're talking about moving away from a behavior into permanent housing and into supportive services, there has to be a process of education. And I just want to make sure I understand how we're going to do that, and I know the police force can't do it by themselves. And so are we talking about using community-based organizations or any other methods that you have as far as educating the public to the new way that we're operating?
Right. So it's a great question. So the park piece is a little bit easier to discuss, right? The rules are already in place. The issue is really just the education piece on you're going to be asked to leave for the day and not return until the following day. So that piece, the solicitation piece is a little more complicated in the sense that you have a number of locations that may or may not be part of it. And so part of our outreach is obviously reaching out to business districts, community-based organizations, letting them understand the rule, because some of our folks that are best able to do that, right, are service providers that are out in the streets every day, business districts, businesses themselves with their employees or their security guards to just simply say, just so you know, you can do this, but it's just got to be right over there. It just can't be right here, type of a thing. And so, and including our officers. This is one that, frankly, we're gonna walk, not run into, because obviously it's a change. The aggressive piece has always been there, and that's. But some of these other ones, the more nuanced ones about, dining areas and things like that. The bottom line is we run across minor violations of the law all day long, whether it's motorists driving cars and other things. The amount of arrests or citations we issue relative to the number of contacts we make is very, very minor, and we manage as best we can without enforcement. So I this is going to continue, this education piece, and it's going to be ongoing. And so I don't imagine the enforcement piece of this even starts before we're 90 days out at least, because we're going to obviously be doing a lot of outreach and development of the proper paperwork and training and all that stuff. So even at a minimum, we're pushed out a ways, because we're going to have to make sure everybody's aware of it.
So I think I hear you very clearly saying that education over enforcement for the first 90 days, unless you see aggressive behavior that's consistent,
right,
and a consistent abuse of that type of behavior, whether it be panhandling or whether it be in the parks,
right,
then
well,
there's...
especially to the new parts of the ordinance, right? We've always had for 2 decades aggressive solicitation. So that is really not much of a change, but some of the other pieces are new and frankly need time to advise people of those changes.
Okay. So I think the priority is to move people towards and accessing services, towards permanent housing, towards and away from behaviors that make other people feel unsafe. Absolutely. And so with that said, I'm very supportive of 14 and 15. I just want to make sure that we are moving to education before we get to enforcement. I want to make sure that we can see the results of our education and the education that's being put forth with our navigators, with our police force, with our fire department, with our community-based organizations, all the different organizations that are out there that come in contact with those who may be going against the law. I want to make sure we're utilizing all of them in educating the public so that as we move to enforcement, people can't say, I didn't know. I think it's very important. We're changing behavior, and we want to make sure we help everyone understand what the new behavior is that we're expecting. Okay?
Thank you, Vice Mayor Jennings. Final comment, if I may, here. And I want to first say that I appreciate the difficulty of this issue, and I appreciate the passion at which good people on both sides have expressed themselves. And thank you for the council and the Law and Ledge Committee, Councilman Chenier, and everyone for working through various iterations of this. This is actually, I will admit to you, a very close call for me. If this ordinance was brought forward in isolation, I would oppose it as incomplete and ineffective. And if it banned panhandling outright, I would oppose it as unfair and overbroad. But as a mayor and on behalf of this city, with my colleagues on this city council, we are trying to respond, and no doubt imperfectly, to a crisis which affects first and foremost, let's be clear, human beings, said it many times, who undoubtedly once had better lives, who've fallen on the hardest of hard times. That's first and foremost. But I think we also have to acknowledge that homelessness in Sacramento and everywhere has also become a significant public safety issue, and that the population is not monolithic, and that there are increasing instances, and we hear it not just from the representatives who are here in the audience tonight from the business community, but we hear it from ordinary residents, we hear it from small businesses, that there is an increasing amount of threatening behavior, that there's an increasing amount of drug abuse, that the methamphetamine and opioid crisis, the drug crisis, is hitting our streets. And so what do we do about that? Especially as we are asking for the community to take a long-term view and vision of what it's going to take to house people and treat people over the long term. It's a whole new day here in Sacramento when it comes to combating homelessness. And I know it's easy to just sort of throw out the 108 million. And I know some of our skeptics don't give much credence to that. But we are, in fact, making unprecedented efforts in our city and in our community to actually get people off the streets. And we're committed to it. And I've publicly held myself accountable to helping get thousands of people off the streets. And so it's a whole new day, but if we're going to ask for the patience and forbearance of the broader community here as we deal with this, because it's going to take some years, I think, to feel the larger positive impact, then we have to respond to some of the behavior out there that is antisocial, that is illegal, and is in fact threatening to people. That's a fact that we must acknowledge. And so this ordinance, even if imperfect, does attempt to draw that distinction between those who act aggressively and those who don't. And to say that by definition, if somebody's taking money out of their ATM, for example, that it's not an appropriate place for someone to exercise their First Amendment rights to ask for money within proximity of that location. And I know, again, that's imperfect, but that's what lawmaking is. And so it's a close call for me. But because I think it's important that we make that distinction, I'm prepared to support these two ordinances tonight. But I want to ask for a follow-up ordinance. I want to ask for a follow-up, and I think it's very simple, clarifying, but vital. Given the fact that we are now building the capacity to help at least 2,500 people, I want it to be clear in our law that if anyone is cited or brought under the umbrella of the ordinances that we are passing tonight, and if they are suffering from mental health or substance abuse issues, that there is a requirement that they be referred to the proper care and treatment, specifically within the whole person care pilot and the Mental Health Services Act resources that are coming forward from the county. We have to make a proper nexus here, because the critics have a point, which is that this may be necessary, but it's absolutely not sufficient. It may send a sense of comfort and appropriate accountability around people who aren't behaving in a way that's consistent with our expectations in the community, but it won't solve the underlying problem. Solving the underlying problem is going to require us to take that $108 million and implement it in the most effective way possible. So let's take the next step and let's connect these ordinances to that hope, not only for our community, but for the individuals who may fall under the umbrella of what we are doing here tonight. Because at the end of the day, a $1,000 fine for somebody on the street, I mean, that's, come on. That's what underlies the skepticism here. On the other hand, I will tell you, if you talk to the most compassionate of judges and the people and police officers and those who work in the criminal justice system, sometimes it takes a hook to get somebody into care and treatment. Yes, it does. Yes, it does. And it's a false promise if you bring somebody under the construct of the criminal justice system and you have nothing to offer them. But now we're going to have something to offer them. At least we better, in using these resources in the most effective way. I vote for this, not with great happiness or enthusiasm, but because it helps distinguish behavior, and at the same time, it may be another opportunity and a hook to get people the help they need to end their homelessness. All those in favor of the ordinance, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstain. That's on file item 14. He moved them together. Both ordinances then thus pass as items 14 and 15 by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, nothing but. And I would like that ordinance back.
Criminalize people's existence. This is why people don't like Democrats or Republicans, because you both act the fucking same.
Bago, you know what?
You declared war tonight.
Okay, he is, well, whatever. People are emotional and upset, and I understand. Okay. Thank you. I was just going to finish. I would like that cleanup ordinance that I just described back before the Law and Ledge Committee in early December, please. Thank you, to draw that nexus.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
You may, stop us
That
from going out to parking lot.
is the end of our formal agenda. We do have an information item 16. Let's go to council comments, please. Councilman Hanson.
Do we wait just a second?
Yeah, of course. Okay. All right, let's resume. Councilman Hanson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. A couple weeks ago during a Budget and Audit Committee hearing, I asked our parking department about a problem related to erroneously issued tickets. We got an answer then, but subsequent to that, last week, the Business Journal published an article and then another one today that makes it appear that the problem may be more pervasive, that erroneous tickets have been going out beyond the particular Park Mobile issue that was identified. And because of that, and I think the confidence of the public being such that we have to maintain it, I'd like to ask the city auditor to look at the training standards and technology in the parking department to ensure that whether it's our parking modernization program, Park Mobile, or it's the training of our particular staff, that we ensure that we are not issuing erroneous tickets anymore. Also, if Mr. City Manager, Park Mobile cannot be made compliant such that we can't stop issuing erroneous tickets, I think we should suspend that service until such time as we can guarantee that 100% of the fares that are, or the meters that are paid reflect in our systems so that the public no longer gets tickets in error.
I think it's Councilmember Hanson, I think it is a proper request, certainly, but I do think the protocol, as I understand it, is it goes to the Budget and Audit Committee for consideration, and then...
I think that because we also have a tip line, and the council has made these requests, I would ask that the city auditor investigate it immediately. If it affects his work plan or he cannot come back in a timely manner, I think that's when it goes to the Budget and Audit Committee. Consistent with our tip line and the other procedures, I think this is similar. So I would ask that
let's talk about it. I mean, you're asking him to look into this without a full audit right now? Is that what you're asking?
I'm asking him to look into it fairly immediately to resolve the concerns of the public.
Okay, I think that's different than a full audit, and so I think that's appropriate. Okay, good. Councilman Harris.
Thank you, Mayor. I didn't have a chance at Law and Ledge to ask for this today because we had closed session. Our short-term rentals ordinance, I know I've brought it back once, it has to come back again. There are a couple of loopholes in it that are allowing some bad players in the neighborhood to not comply with our ordinance, and we don't have the ability to enforce. So I would like to put that on the Law and Ledge log. And specifically about, we haven't addressed the number of buildings on a parcel. We've said that we could have 6 people overnight in a short-term rental, but if there is an accessory dwelling structure, people are currently advertising for 8 people in the front structure, 4 in the back, clearly exceeds our ordinance, and the city attorney tells me that even though they're advertising against our ordinance, that we can do nothing about it. So those two things, you know, how many, does the ordinance apply to the parcel, the entire parcel, or to separate buildings on the parcel? That's one thing. And then advertising outside of the limits of our ordinance needs to be addressed as well. couple quick announcements. Natomas Community Association meeting is Wednesday, November 15th at 6:30, South Natomas Community Center. Our PNA is this Thursday, November 16th, 7:30 at Fremont Presbyterian Church. And Run to Feed the Hungry is next Thursday, November 23rd. Be sure to register and get your information at runtofeedthehungry.com. You might recall there were 28,000 people who participated last year. It was the biggest year effort. That's 56,000 feet. That's a lot of feet hitting the streets. So it's a really wonderful event, and I hope you can all join me out there.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Jennings.
Thank you, Mayor. Two announcements, and then I'd like to close the meeting out, if I may.
Yes, of course.
City Hall in your neighborhood will take place this Thursday, November the 16th, at the Robbie Waters Library in the Pocket Greenhaven area. It'll take place from 6 to 8 p.m., and if you have issues that you'd like your council member to address, I will be there on Thursday from 6 to 8, and look forward to seeing you. Also, from now through mid-December, the Rotary Club of Pocket Greenhaven is hosting the second annual blanket drive. Donations will benefit the Moral Value Program, the Homeless Outreach, My Sister's House, and other organizations that are in need. They are going to be accepted at the Public Safety Center headquarters, the ACC Senior Services, and the Robbie Waters Library. So if you have any questions, contact Kiko Wong at area code 916-718-7400. Once again, that number is 916-718-7400. And I'd like to close the meeting in honor of Willie Caston, who was the president of the Mesa Grande Neighborhood Association. He was also a volunteer with the Police Services Patrol. His wife, Charlene, they're both personal friends of mine, but more important than that, they were great community servants to the Valley High community. I want to thank him and his family for their services. He was a father, he was a husband, he was a spiritual leader, he was a volunteer, he was a mentor, but most of all, he was my friend. He passed away in his sleep, and he will truly, truly be missed. And there's a big void in Valley High for his loss. I want to close the meeting in his honor.
In his honor and in his memory. Thank you very much, Vice Mayor. If nothing else to come before the City Council, we're adjourned.